Of June 14th to order, and we'll start with a roll call of attendance.
Thank you. I'm going to wait 1 second because I do see Linda come in the waiting room. So hold on a second. And let me rename her, but I will start the roll call. Chair Fritz.
Here.
Vice Chair Ottinger.
Here.
Commissioner Burns. Debbie, I see you're there. Can you unmute yourself? There we go. So we're doing roll call. Debbie Burns.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Dauch.
Here.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Here.
And Commissioner Kelly.
Here.
Thank you. We do have all members here tonight. And yes, I will note this is Commissioner Dauch's last meeting. So we have 6 and hopefully we don't have a tie.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Fritz.
All right, thanks. So the next item on the agenda actually is for me to read my Zoom script. So this meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with the State of California executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom is being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after this meeting. We will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Planning commissioners and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom as noted on the city's website and is noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak to the Planning Commission may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment. Next up, we have some draft minutes to review and approve from March 8th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections on those minutes? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
A motion to approve the minutes?
I second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Carrie?
Sure. Sorry about that. Commissioner Kelly.
Aye.
Commissioner Dauch.
Aye.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Burns.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ottinger.
Aye.
And Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks. So next we have an opportunity for members of the public that would like to comment on something that is not on our agenda. Now's your opportunity. You have 3 minutes to make your public comment. But if it has to do with tonight's agenda items, please hold that till the public hearing portion. But if you have something that you would like to say to the commission now, please raise your virtual hand or get our attention by waving your actual hand.
Okay, I
I'm
do
not-
not see any. Thank you. Sorry, Chair Fritz.
Okay.
And we did not receive any comments via email that weren't for items either that are going to be coming before the commission or are associated with tonight's items.
Thanks. So next we have any statements of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest on tonight's items? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our first public hearing, which is a temporary use permit for the Peacetown concert at the Barlow. Can we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Fritz. And one note, I do not see the applicant Jim Corbett here. I do want to be able to reach out to him and make sure that he's got the link for the meeting. So I don't know if it's possible to adjust the agenda and do the other item first.
We could do that, although it might be a little while. I don't know. Do you want to? I feel bad for people that have showed up because this was first. And it
Sure,
could
sure.
pile-
No, I think that's fine. I'll go dark and mute myself while John gives the staff report and just give him a quick call. Make sure
Okay,
he's got the info.
that'd
Thanks.
be great. Thank you.
Thanks. So tonight's item is a temporary use permit application by Jim Corbett for the Peacetown concerts that are located in the Barlow every Wednesday from June 22nd to September 7th this year, starting from 4:30 p.m. and going till 8:30 p.m. Excuse me. The application was originally submitted last year and approved by the planning department, as the planning department or staff can approve temporary use permits up to 6 months. TUPs over 6 months require planning commission approval, and that's why we are here tonight to go over that approval. As described in the application, that's part of the staff report. These events will occur every Wednesday from 4:30 to 8 p.m., starting from June 22nd and going to September 7th. This year, a parking contract group will be monitoring the Rialto Theater Hotel to ensure that no event parking takes place in that parking lot, as there was concerns and comments from last year's events for that issue. I also want to make sure that we did get some public comments before the staff report was written, and we also received some public comments for this item after the staff report was written and was uploaded to the website this afternoon. And I believe that is it. The application also designates an area map of the site showing stage locations, restrooms, and barricades for parking closures. The event typically sees roughly 1,000 people or more per night or per Wednesday event, and also hosts live music, which is subject to our noise ordinance.
All right, thanks, John. Are there any questions of staff at this moment? All right, I actually have a couple questions.
Question?
Oh, go ahead, Linda.
Okay. Just wondering if it was a typo in the conditions of approval. It said the live music ceases at 7:30 and the applicant was asking for 8:30. So is that a typo or did something change?
I believe so. The events run until 8 p.m. and the live music portion of it would need to cease by 7:30 p.m. If that answers your question.
All right.
Anything else, Linda?
And also, is the parking attendant or monitor for private property also going to be, is there someone available to monitor if they're parking in the overflow on Moore Street to make sure that they're parking in the right areas?
I'm not sure on that. I would, if Jimmy is here, I would have him answer that portion of the question. I believe
So,
they do have
and-
parking attendants for the Moore Street parking, but I'm not certain.
All right, more to be revealed. That's it.
Thanks. I had a question actually kind of related to the question about the timing. Was that, because the application, talks about actually 8:30, I believe. And then in the conditions of approval, it talks about 7:30. And I'm just wondering, was that discussed with staff, and with the agreement that the music would stop at 7:30? I mean, I know when it was in Ives Park, the music usually went until 8. And I'm also wondering, how does this relate to the noise ordinance in terms of that timing? Do we have sort of a similar time period as part of the noise ordinance?
I can take the noise ordinance part of the question first. That's maybe a little bit easier. We do have a noise ordinance. It is, based on decibels. The time frame for it for evening hours during the week, I believe, is 10 p.m. So it is after either the 7:30 or 8:30 hours. I do know there is, my assessment is, even though the condition of approval is not to exceed the noise ordinance, I think it generally probably does, just based on casual observation. We haven't measured it, and we haven't gotten complaints about the noise, other than a comment from a business owner who is also interested in live music and at his venue.
Okay.
And sorry, I'll have you repeat the first part of your
Well,
question.
I was just I'm just trying to understand if because the application, I think, mentions 8:30 but it wasn't clear if that was just the event or the music, and if staff had some conversation about cutting the music off earlier, because I know when they did this in Ives Park, the music usually went till 8. So I just was wondering what the.
Right. Well,
how that all
I can tell you, I have the flyer that Jim has produced, and it is Wednesdays 4:30 to 7:30
Okay.
at all of the stages. So that's where we want the music until 7:30.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Burns, I see a question.
Yeah, this might have been answered. I didn't hear, so forgive me if it was, but parking seems to be an issue in downtown in general. I know with this application that they're going to keep the street open, so there'll be more parking there and there'll be overflow. But it just seems like there still won't be enough parking with all those stages in the lots right now. Has anybody done any assessment on this? How many people have come, what they're expecting, if there is actually parking?
Carrie, I might have you answer that one.
Sure. Sorry. And I did just get a text from Jim. He's at the community summit, but he's going to try to call in. So some of these questions he might also know. So I'm sorry. I was reading that. Commissioner Burns, what was the question?
Yeah, so I know that they're going to open the street this time, which will allow more parking, plus there's the overflow parking, but with the stages being set up in the current parking lots, has there been any assessment done of the amount of attendance that has been there to their venues, and now with 3 stages and the amount of parking there'll be, and what the
Sure. So staff has not done an assessment. We do know there's a number of spaces that are at the Morris Street, and I do see Jennifer Adametz from the Barlow. So I don't know. Oh, and here is Jim as well. So I think that's probably a question that might be helpful to if they can address for the expected attendance and
available.
And the available parking, how many spaces are at the Morris Street lot and how many are being taken up by the application. It's certainly less than last year. You're correct with McKinley Street being open, so all that street parking is available. It is the smaller lots in between Wood 4 and the Foundry Building, and the over by Acre Pizza and that Green Lawn Village Green area for the Children's Village are the only 2 parking space, and Kirk and Goat are the parking spaces being blocked off. So I'll defer the rest of that to the applicant.
Are there any
Thank you.
other questions of the commission at this moment? Kathy?
Yeah, I may be jumping ahead, but I'm looking at the findings and seeing that number 2 is very similar to number 8. And I'm wondering if we need to ask what about the differences so we can determine that when we're asking the client later. It's about sound. The first one refers to the 50-foot from the site, and the other one doesn't mention that, but it does require the police department, gives the police department authority. So are those the same, or is there something different that we need to pay attention to?
They are generally the same, and it probably makes sense to do one versus the other. The reason we've used 50 feet from the event site is that's pretty much, where the noise ordinance would, dies off in an approach. So if you're on your site and 50 feet from the property, in this case, those would be across the streets, so it would be on the Barlow campus in particular, and 50 feet, we might want to specify 50 feet past, the Barlow campus, or is it each of the stages? Obviously, there's a volume control so that the stages don't disrupt each other as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we might be leaning toward number 2 then.
I will say it's a little bit easier to monitor because you can just simply go across the street, 50 feet away, which Laguna Parkway, I have measured for other reasons, is a 50-foot right away.
Okay.
From back of sidewalk to the other to the other side of the street.
Everett?
Yeah, so in regards to the timing, the music timing, they're going to have a stage also at Hop Monk, and they have music much longer than that. So how is that handled? Is that going to be part of the 7:30, or does it go to their normal time?
So both the Hop Monk and the event center have use permits for live music events already. They are not part of this review. They would be subject to that review. So in that instance, yes, the Hop Monk stage could go on longer if it wanted to. It would just need to abide by the Hop Monk's use permit regulations.
Any other questions of the commission?
Just a point of clarification, you were saying Hop Monk, but you meant Crooked Cove, is that right?
The Hop Monk is actually included as part of Peacetown.
Yeah, there are 2 stages that aren't under consideration tonight. That is the Hop Monk at the regular music venue, and the event center at the Barlow, just because they don't need permission, they already have that.
Understood. I assumed you were talking about this application, so I got it.
All right, if there are no other questions of the commission, I'll give the applicant an opportunity to make a presentation. So Jim, would you like to say a few words?
Hey, you hear me? Unmuted? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
So do you have any presentation or any comments you'd like to make, Jim?
We can't hear you.
Now we can't hear you. But we can hear someone
and people
typing.
kind of like that setup. So we kind of kept that same format this year. Our stage at the Foundry is just an acoustic stage. That's right under that awning across from Woodford and the Fern Bar. And our stage, the other stage is at the Community Market. And that's right out. That's a big stage that they have out there. And then Crooked Goat has regular music there, I think, already. And so this is just, they have real pretty good bands there. The band at the event center is usually the kind of the headliner type of band and stuff. So that's what we're doing there at all those venues and stuff. So, and it gives people the opportunity to kind of to go around and see different music, you know, and we're probably paying over 300 musicians over the summer here too. So that's something near and dear to my heart. These guys been out of, a lot of people been out of work for two and a half years. So, and I think it brings a lot of joy to the community, and it helps to bring a little unity to the community through music. So that's a good thing. And you guys have any questions in terms of what we are doing? So, and concerns?
Yeah, I think there were a few questions for you, Jim. So if you want to hold on and keep yourself on the line.
I will. Yeah, I'll stay here, and I'm a little deep, so I'm on my phone. So, but I'll too much rock and roll.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a couple of questions just confirming the time. So the music is going to stop at 7:30. Is that correct?
The music goes basically 4:30 to 7:30. I think in the bottle, we've moved the Hot Monk a little bit later, just because last year people would leave the main thing, they'd go over to the Hot Monk, but that would be finished. I think the Goat was probably going to go till 8 o'clock, but they're starting a little later, and they go till 8 then. So, but generally everything else will be tied up by 7:30.
Okay. There was also a question about parking and wondering, in terms of, have you guys done a sort of looked at how many people you expect and how many parking spaces are available? We know you have more available this year because McKinley Street's going to stay open, but have you done any, kind of research or investigation of number of parking spaces versus the projected number of attendees?
Yeah, well, Barlow has that overflow parking at the old cement plant, and that can park like 150 cars. We are keeping McKinley Street open so cars can park there, and we do have a parking monitor in the Rialto lot because she doesn't, she rightfully so does not want our event taking up her parking places. So we have hired a security guard to watch so that people do not park in the Rialto space.
And so will you have someone at each entrance? 'Cause I know the Rialto has several different entrances to the parking lot. Will you have someone at each location?
Yeah, I'll have to check with Perry on that, but I know for sure we have one guard, and he tries to keep an eye on both places and stuff. So, and he's I think the last week there was a complaint, but he was there. So we're going to make sure that we timestamp the security guard being there and stuff. So,
Commissioner Burns, you have a question?
I'm both spaces on Morris Street, and then there's the parking on McKinley being open. But I had read that they were expecting around 1,000 people. So are you saying there's adequate parking for all of that attendance? Because we only have 100 at Morris Street. So, have you done any assessment of what the actual numbers are of people who are coming and the actual numbers of parking?
As I say, I know there's at least 150 spots in the overflow parking down on Morris Street, and then Morris Street is open for that. Because of the industrial space, people are also which doesn't have any activity going on down there.
Wait,
too.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that because you went out because of the industrial space? What?
Say that again.
Yeah,
little bit.
sorry, you cut out. So you said because of the industrial space, what is that?
Well, the stuff that's on Morris Street, sometimes people park up in there. I don't know if that's legal or not, but there's a lot.
It's actually not legal, and there've been several tenants up there who've complained.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put some. I guess we can put some signage up there. Community centers said there was no problem with people parking in their spot because they don't have a lot of stuff going on a Wednesday.
Gotcha. So again, to my original question, have you guys done an assessment? Of
I have not. As I say, last year it seemed to be once we got the thing settled with the Rialto, a lot of people, locals, will walk on down and don't need parking. The parking is usually from the people who show up from out of town.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'm wondering, I see Jennifer is on the call. I'm wondering if you can speak to do you know how many parking spaces are in the Barlow, altogether?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I was waiting for that. And I don't have that data off the top of my head. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
However, I know that, based on last year, well, I don't know if I want to extend, I was going to talk more, but to answer your question and not overstep my boundaries with speaking, I do not know off the top of my head, but I could get that information to you shortly.
That's fine. I wonder, does the staff have the Barlow kind of parking count easily accessible?
We do have that number and I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay.
And I did, after the question came up, I counted very quickly the spaces that are being blocked off as part of the event. And it looks like that's around 48 to 50 spaces. It's hard to tell at the Crooked Goat because they've done some of the temporary parklet stuff down there in some of their spaces. So so there's a total of 469 spaces. I do know, so that doesn't, we have been trying to track when like Regen took a couple parking spaces to do their patio and that kind of stuff. So that should be fairly accurate. So 469 minus the 50.
So approximately 400.
Yeah, approximately 400
more
plus,
than 400.
Plus the overflow on Morris Street.
Okay, thank you. Everett, do you have a question?
Yeah. So Jim, I'm just wondering, when the event was at the Ives Park, what was the attendance there usually?
At our height, we probably had 1,200 people there. So, and that parking, of course, was mostly in the neighborhoods.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just wondering, looking at to try and determine the number of cars. If we look at like the event, say at Ives Park versus downtown, and kind of get an idea how many people actually drove versus walked to the event. I don't know if there was an issue.
Yeah, well, no, I think that's for sure. When we were at Ives, there was more walking to the park by the local neighbors, and but the cars that came in from out of town, that they were parking in the neighborhood. So in a way, as I say, there's definitely more public parking in the Barlow, and then I mean also the plaza is a place that people will park too and walk down into the Barlow. So, and that's public parking, I believe, too. So
okay, and
so yeah.
And then when you were doing it at Ives, the music went till what time usually there?
We stopped at 8. We went 5 to 8 in Ives Park.
Okay.
So we've
And-
kind of backed that up a little bit, 4:30
Okay.
to 7:30. And as I say, I think it stretches to 8 at the GOAT.
Is the, I noticed that when the original application, you applied for 8:30. Is 7:30 adequate time, or would 8 be more appropriate to match the other stages, since, you know, there's music going on in other places? So I don't know if that's just part of the design, you know, the plan, or was it just to appease?
Well, as I say, I wanted to I think stretch out. So I realistically, there will be music going on till 8 in the Barlow. So, but the stage at the Blue Ridge Kitchen will end at 7:30 sharp. The Found 7, and Community Market will stop at 7:30.
Okay.
Those stages will end then.
Yeah, I guess my question is that if it could all be at 8, would that be more appropriate, since again, there's other music going on anyway, whether it's, you know, block away or not, or is it just by design or by plan that works better to stop it at 7?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get most of the stuff done by 7:30, and then have a couple little spots where people could drift off to the other venues. And as I say, over at the Hop Monk, they're going from 6 to 8:30, but that's typical of what they do already anyway.
Okay. And regarding the parking attendant at the Rialto, how is that determined? I mean, do they basically just watch people drive in and see if they get out of their car, walk into the theater, or walk to the event? How?
Maybe Jennifer can maybe answer that a little bit better than I. She's the one that has the contraction, but basically he's walking back and forth the things. We do have signs up there, and he knows what he has to do, so he'll watch the people get out, and if they got their lawn chairs and they're going to thing, he says he's been cursed a few times by people who he asked to move their cars. So
yeah, because
we want to be good neighbors to the Rialto, so whatever that takes, we want to do that. So
yeah, because that's one of my concerns. I think Rialto's been very patient with trying to, get along, but if it hurts their business, and everybody's been hurt from that, it just doesn't seem like one person, by the time you're engaging somebody not parking there at the event, you got 2 or 3 other cars that can come in. So, I just kind of want to hear more about that plan as to how that's going to be monitored.
Jennifer,
Jennifer, do you want to address that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I've made it very, very clear. I understand the sensitivity of that parking lot. We certainly want to be good neighbors to the Rialto. The lot, I requested from Carrie and John, who were kind to send me the plans of that parking lot, because that full parking lot, as I now fully understand, is not all the Rialto. A portion of that towards the Whole Foods side is public. So that guard, I had him stationed in between the entrance off Laguna Parkway and the entrance off of McKinley Street. And I personally walked back and forth multiple times to check the lot, to check with my guard. That lot was clear. He was definitely doing his job. He's not just a little guy in a t-shirt. He's a big man in a vest, in a big white security truck. And we trust him. We've used him when I have to monitor other parking areas. We have issues with Community Market. He understands the severity and the sensitivity of the situation. And I have absolute confidence that he can perform that job. The distance between the 2 entrances off Laguna Parkway and McKinley Street, to me, is reasonable. If cars were just pouring in the lot nonstop, you know, like you're entering into the fairgrounds or something and you got trails of cars, but that's not what we experienced in that parking lot. You certainly do get people that drive in thinking that they got a great parking spot and they're going to walk off, but that's not what we'll allow. That's not what the security guard will allow. So I have very great confidence, just as I witnessed last week on Peacetown, that we will not have an impact to that lot, and that lot will be guarded and with the utmost respect and care. And if there is any issues, you know, if anybody ever has an issue, you can reach me any time of day or night and I will address it. But again, like I said, he has made very clear that that lot is priority and we need to keep it secure for guests that are visiting the theater. I don't know if that's helpful, but I feel very confident that he can do that job.
Okay. And then parking along McKinley, you know, with that many people walking around, and in the past it's been closed, which facilitates people walking around. How is that flow going to happen with a lot of people all over and, you know, people coming and going there? Is that, you think that's going to cause any problems, or how's that addressed?
So when Jim applied for the use permit last year and we hosted Peacetown, our original plan was to close the street, and we did a full McKinley Street closure, just like we do with Head West. We found that to be unnecessary. It created, without the street being really elevated and used, you know, without all the booths and without everything happening in the street, it seemed almost like a dead zone. And we do have the sidewalks for guests to walk up and down the street. We tried also smaller portions of McKinley Street being closed, but logistically, to make it safe and to make sure cars don't get bottlenecked on a busy, you know, on a main road, we felt that it wasn't necessary, again, because the street is not being utilized for the actual event. You know, if Peacetown was just one stage right there at the corner of McKinley, at the four-way stop, and the street was just crammed with people, absolutely. But because the stages are off of the street, it absolutely makes sense that we would not close it. If Peacetown becomes a huge, you know, if we feel it became a safety issue, we would absolutely address it. But I don't personally imagine hordes of people needing to be in the street nor walking in the street. We have not witnessed that.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner questions for the applicant?
Linda here.
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, my prior question around the overflow parking at Morris. I don't know, Jennifer, if you heard my question. What's the issues with the parking over in the overflow? Does anyone make sure that people are parking and don't block other people in, or how does that work?
Yes, so while that lot is not an optimal lot, of course, we've put in some minimal striping to help kind of guide cars. It's the best we can do in the situation where the lot is at this point. We use this lot when we also have Head West, and we have a lot of guests on the property as well. With the striping and with the you know, the guides around, once people get in those spots, it's a very clear and obvious pattern for vehicles. We put delineators on the sides of the parking spaces in the biggest, flattest portion of the lot to ensure that a car will not mindlessly park next to another car thinking, oh, that's space, when it's actually a driveway, for lack of a better term. We have never had any vehicles stuck in the lot. And we've been using it now for quite a while with big traffic events, IPA 10K, Head West, Peacetown last year. So I feel confident the lot can be used in the current conditions safely for guests, especially because the event is over in daylight and it's safe for people to get in and out.
Great, thank you so much for that explanation. And do you know how many parking spaces are over there? I heard 100, then I heard 150. I want
It's,
to clear that up.
you know, depending upon the vehicles in the main, the flattest portion, and then how they can go up and around. I know we can get over 100 cars in there. It's not an exact science because they are not striped. I'm happy to walk the site tomorrow and get a better estimation. I've never fully, when the lot has been full, I have not fully counted vehicles in the lot to confirm. I know our plans for the lot, you know, in talking about improvements, if those get approved, would fit more cars than fit now, just because of the grading of the lot is not optimal for the most cars to fit. So I don't have an exact answer since it's not perfectly striped throughout the whole lot, but I know we can definitely fit over 100 vehicles in that lot.
All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yeah, no problem.
Debbie, you're muted.
Thank you. I have one last question about the flow of traffic and people. There isn't a crosswalk there from the parking lot over to the event at the Barlow. So I noticed that people take that turn awfully fast and come fast at the beginning of Morris Street. And I also noticed people for the events just going back and forth on Morris Street. Since there's no crosswalk there, they're not walking all the way down to the light at the end. Have you had any complaints or concerns or had anything or have thought about how you would flow pedestrians without a crosswalk going from that parking lot?
I would like to first say that I would absolutely love to have a crosswalk there. I think it would absolutely be beneficial. I understand that there is not one. We've never guided people to go to the light, unfortunately. I know that that's the safest option. So I know that's a hard, I don't have a really great answer for that. I feel like people usually make smart choices when crossing a street. I have to go check on the lot. I myself do cross the street just from Laguna Parkway over to Morris with, you know, paying attention. But we do not have any sort of plan in place. We don't have a crossing guard or anybody out assisting with pedestrian traffic there. But like I said, we have had very high traffic events while utilizing that lot and have, you know, thankfully not encountered any issues, but I completely understand your concern. It's a concern for myself as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no other comments or questions from the commission, I will open up the public comment period. So if you would like to make a public comment, this is your opportunity. You will have 3 minutes to make your public comment. And if you can raise either your virtual hand or your actual hand, get our attention in the screen, we will call on you. And yeah, we'll go from there. So I'm going to start with Kai.
And Kai, because we have 2 pages worth of people, can you see the timer on the screen? If not, I can. Okay, great.
So you can unmute yourself, Kai, and you'll have your 3 minutes. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much for having this public hearing. We greatly appreciate it. I noticed it jumped 4 seconds there. A few things. So I want to show you this photo. I don't know how well this is going to work, but this is a photo of the guard at last week's Peacetown concert series, sitting in his truck. He's sitting there in his big white truck near the McKinley Street entrance to the parking lot, with absolutely no visibility of either the Laguna Street or the western entrance to the parking lot from the city lot. How is this effective? It is not. He doesn't get out of his truck. He doesn't wander around. He stays there and he sits. And last week he wasn't there. We had to call and complain to Kari to get him to show up. The Barlow has consistently and constantly failed to do their duty under their obligations under the original permit. Peacetown has failed to do their duty under the obligations of the original permit. We had to call constantly last year. They had volunteers who don't show up. I know they're not going to have volunteers this year, but you know, they didn't even check to make sure their guard was there this time. The lack of respect and attention to detail on this thing has been a continual pain for us. And we strongly encourage the commission to not approve this permit. We want Peacetown to go back to Ives Park where it belongs. The Barlow is not a site that can accommodate the amount of people that they are trying to attract. There's not enough parking. They've told you they haven't done a parking study, which is painfully clear. Their patrons are totally disregarding the rights of the neighboring businesses, the rights of the neighboring property owners. It's just an untenable situation. We're tired of it. We don't want it. And it's unacceptable.
Okay, thank you, Kai.
You're welcome.
Sue, I will go to you next.
Yeah, hi. I support everything that Kai just said, but I am here to talk about a few different things. And first of all, I would like to say that there was a good neighbor policy where the applicant said that he notified all of his neighbors. And I would like you to know that I own Johnson Street and my property touches his, and I was not notified. I found out about this meeting through Kai. So I find that really disappointing that he didn't notify me. I would also like to point out that there are 3 entrances to the theater parking lot. I know that because I had to post 3 signs for handicap, for towing. There's a variety of reasons. So one person cannot monitor 3 entrances. So there's one where the public parking lot is, there's one on McKinley, and there's one on Laguna Parkway. Okay, the last thing I want to say is that my family owns, as I said, Johnson Street. I'm one of the owners. And last year, for several weeks, he had more than 50 cars in my lot, more than 50 cars. And I complained to Carrie. He did absolutely nothing about it. Week after week, the cars were parked there. So I would like to know, what is he going to do to monitor my parking lot that's between Rialto and the Barlow? There's a parking lot right there. What's he going to do to keep the cars out? Okay, so I would like him to answer that question when the time comes. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sue.
Yep.
Jennifer, is your hand up to make public comment? Good.
I just feel a little sad and disheartened hearing, the negative tone, coming from some of our neighbors. I love everybody to be happy. And if you've never met me, I am the property manager at the Barlow. Last year was last year. And I feel like this year brings us an opportunity to improve upon our plan and our assistance to our neighbors, including the Rialto. I heard the comments about the guard. When I visited that lot, he was not in his truck, but I am happy to make that very clear for any upcoming events, including the event tomorrow. I do not believe 3 guards are necessary for that lot, especially when the other entrance, one of the entrances is off of and enters into the public side. But the 2 entrances, I believe, can be monitored by a guard on foot. I will make sure he's on foot. I will be there during the event. And we want to be good neighbors. We want to be given a chance. This Peacetown is all about love and, and bringing people together. I don't want the Rialto to hate the Barlow nor hate me. I love you. I visit your movie theater, and I just think that's important for you to know. I care. I promise. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Roxanne? Roxanne, can you unmute yourself, and can you see the timer, Roxanne?
I do. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was here last week during the event at the theater, and I was actually the one that took that photo of the guard. I had been going up and down McKinley Street to see if the event was happening, and that started at 4:30. And that truck was never there until Kai finally called to have someone come. When the guy came, he sat in the truck, and I did not ever see him get out. This problem is one that probably everybody can understand. Our business is down by about 70% right now. And anything that acts as a deterrent for our patrons it really impacts us a lot. The amount of time and energy that we have had to spend on dealing with issues like Peacetown and now with Head West is time that we don't really have. You know, we want to be a good neighbor too, but we're not feeling the love a whole lot or a lot of consideration. And I just feel that I don't know the backstory as to why this event ended up at the Barlow, why it's still not at Ives Park. But I would seriously like to ask somebody to please consider moving it back there, because it's just such an ongoing problem all of the time. Every time there is an event, we have the same situation with the farmers market. You know, we've put up the signs. There were no signs put up from Peacetown last week. We are the ones who are kind of out there monitoring, and I've been yelled at, screamed at, had profanity, my staff, the same thing. You know, we should not have to deal with this. And having one person in that lot is not enough, especially when it starts getting really busy. So if you could please consider moving it back to Ives Park, that would be really, really great, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public like to make a comment? I'm sorry, Kai, you have had your opportunity. This isn't really a dialogue, unfortunately.
I didn't use my whole 3 minutes. I have one other thing I forgot to say.
Does anyone remember how much time Kai had left?
He had a little over a minute left, I believe.
Okay, go ahead, Kai.
My one other comment, now that I've had a moment to breathe, is then this was not a Peacetown event. I want to make that clear, but there was an event at the Barlow last year. It was some sort of comedy event at the Fern Bar with amplified sound. And they had a comedian there who was swearing. And I could hear, I walked out the front door of my building and I'm hearing this person dropping F-bombs. And I think that it needs to be said in the conditions on this permit, no matter where it is, that there needs to be a prohibition about foul language, you know, because this is promoted as a family event. And so, and you know, we're a family-oriented business. And so I just don't think it's appropriate when you have amplified sound that there is, you know, that there is profanity, because that's not expected. And the other thing is that I think that, you know, if the event is going to go forward, there need to be real enforceable penalties that can be leveled by the police department or the planning commission on the Barlow and on Peacetown for non-compliance. Because last year I was told, well, there's nothing the city could do when they didn't comply with having volunteers. There need to be real, concrete, substantial penalties for non-compliance, and there needs to be enforcement by the city. The city has to do its job. Thank you.
Thanks, Kai. Anyone else?
I do not see any other commenters for this item.
See, Jim is raising his hand.
Yeah, I'll give Jim an opportunity in a minute. I'm just, as the applicant, to respond to some of the questions, but I wanted to make sure we have no more public comment at this point. So I will close the public comment portion and go back and see if we can respond to some of these questions or concerns. So yeah, Jim, you want to say something about some of the concerns you've heard? You're muted.
Well, as I say, Peace Town, the intention is to benefit everybody in the area, and I would love to have the Rialto benefit from Peace Town. Maybe by saying, "Hey, at 7:30, come to the movies," and we have a special thing here. I would like to commit 2 guards to it, and I'll talk to Jennifer about that. And so we will monitor both the Laguna spot and the McKinley spot. And I think that that's a fair thing to have 2 guards there, and that should be able to take care of that. But I would love to have the Rialto be very successful and offer something during the Peace Town Wednesday, saying, "Hey, at 7:30 we got all our movies starting, and you can come and special 10% off or whatever." Anyway, to get more people in your place would be great. So I'm totally for you guys being successful. Obviously, it's not possible to move it back to Ives this year because of the number of people we have, but it is a consideration to move back to Ives next year. But we want to do. We want everybody in the town to be successful, and in a way, we had to move here last year because of COVID, and we couldn't get people at Ives Park, so that's why we first moved here. And most of the businesses that were here really enjoyed it, and some of the outlying businesses also benefited from it too. So I would love to see the Rialto take the reins and say, "Hey, come on out after Peace Town and come to the movies."
Thank you, Jim. Okay, I will bring this back to the commission then for any kind of thoughts or discussion on this item, how to move forward. Anyone like to jump in and start that process?
I'd be happy to start.
Go ahead, Zach.
So I think that I appreciate the dialogue here and in hearing from Kai and other business owners there. That's an important element here, no doubt about it. So the 2 issues I really hear of concern are the parking or potential for parking problems. I think for me that's been more or less addressed in that we have seen successful events without impacting parking. Now, if I understand from Kai and the others, the lot, it was a little unclear, and maybe this is a question, as to whether the Rialto lot was actually being filled up. Was the controls, no matter how, whether they were effectively, or whether the guard was there on time or not, it wasn't clear to me how impacted that parking lot was. But irrespective of that, I absolutely think the condition should be that there are security personnel at each of the entrances, and I think that should be something that is considered for all events at the Barlow. I think that we have enough history, and this was enough of a concern in the very earliest applications. And we always have said that with these types of applications, hey, let's take people at their word and hope they're going to be able to achieve what they want to achieve, what the Barlow undoubtedly want to achieve, what Kai and other business owners want to achieve. We've tried that for several events, and we're seeing that it's pretty consistently at least an issue. So I think that I would support a condition that requires more robust professional security monitoring of that parking with at least two people. And of course, those security personnel, in my view, should be a legitimate security company that's bonded and insured to do that work. So that's, I would see where my biggest concern is. To Kai's point about amplified music and swearing, I think that's a very unfortunate story. And I think for Peace Town, it probably goes without saying that they're not going to have profanity, but it's I take that to be an unfortunate story and something that I would probably talk to that business owner about, given the opportunity. But again, my concern here is with that particular parking lot. I think parking generally, we've got about 400 on site, a good 100 or so off of McKinley. We've got the other parking area in the plaza. So I think the parking is generally adequate, and I think that's proven by history. I'm repeating myself, so I'll stop.
Thanks, Zach. Any thoughts from anybody else? Kathy?
You're muted.
You're muted, Kathy.
Yes, I appreciate Zach's comment and agree with them. And I think he's suggesting that we add another condition of approval, maybe F, that requires sufficient parking guards at the theater lot. I'm guessing 2 might be okay. So I would recommend we add that. And I think we should eliminate condition number 8 and put in condition number 2. Those would be my comments. And I think the 7:30 is okay. You know, I feel like it would be okay to make it 8 o'clock if other people want to do that, just in case something wants to continue and the mood is right and everything's going well. I don't think 7:30 is a magic number. And those would be my only comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Debbie?
Yeah, I am concerned, listening to the owners of the Rialto and knowing the stress they've been under and having their business down 70%. The one thing that struck me about one of them said was that the amount of time they're spending on monitoring this, in essence, policing it, they just don't have the time, being already strapped and struggled and trying to just make it through COVID. So I do think that the onus should not be on them, and there should be something, like they were told last year that the city and the police can't do anything if they're not, following the conditions of the permit. What could be done about that so we alleviate the tension between Peacetown and the Rialto, and that they're no longer monitoring it, and that there are some systems in place for if it's not happening.
Carrie or John, can you address that? I mean, these are conditions of approval, so they're required to follow it. It seems like the city should be able to, follow up if they're not being.
But it didn't
compliant.
happen. They were told last year that there was nothing the city or the police could do. So.
Yeah, and I will say there was a lot of conversations on that I had with Kai and Sue and folks from the theater. I can attest to the fact that it was a lot of time and a lot of patience on their side. I had a lot of communications with the Barlow. I don't think Jennifer was with the Barlow at that time, but certainly with Yolanda and Jim. The potential penalty for not following the conditions of approval is revocation of the use permit. And, last year, the cinema was very patient, but I did let both Jim and the cinema know that I was not able to approve it as a staff level, not only if they wanted to continue the next year. And I will say that I did encourage Jim to return to IS Park. And I understand the decision. I don't have an issue with that per se, but I did note that not only was it going to be more than 6 months, but the amount of time that staff had to deal with this. And yeah, it is, revocation is, it's sort of an all or nothing thing. And so I don't know if there's something in between. Limiting the number of, reducing the number of stages if things don't work out, or I'm not sure if this, there's probably, it's a use permit, so the commission can provide any number of conditions as sort of triggers, if that is something, a direction they'd like to go as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just, even hearing you say that, I feel like I love Peacetown. I do think it's a fantastic addition to our community. And yet I really, there's absolutely no way that both your department and the businesses should be having to spend this much time and energy and effort. So if it can, and I would hate for it to be revoked, but I think if I was the Rialto, I'd want some assurance in there, especially hearing how patient they were and how much time you spent on this last year. So if it could be a, win-win.
Yeah, no, and I will note, Kai did contact me on Wednesday when there wasn't a monitor. I had to send John out to the site, and I also had to contact the applicants, the Barlow and Jim, and it turns out the parking monitor had been down at the community market parking lot, and my understanding is whoever was scheduled for the theater lot hadn't showed up. So, certainly Jennifer was great at addressing that and making sure that that was corrected as soon as, by the time John got down there from the city hall, they had corrected that, and he was at the Rialto site. So, but I agree. I'm frankly, I don't want to spend my summer having to try to mitigate any these issues too. And so that's part of why we're bringing it to the Planning Commission, because this is a serious issue for surrounding businesses, and I think the applicant needs to understand that and really take the conditions of approval seriously.
Great, thank you so much.
Everett.
Yeah, I'm also, been very supportive of Peacetown. I think it's a great community event. But also when we do make approvals, whether it's for zoning or events, one of the conditions is that there is not a detriment to the area or the surrounding businesses. My concern has just been in the historical events that have continued to happen and how it's just continued to be a problem. It seems to me that the control of the security for the parking lot should not be with the Barlow. It should be with Rialto. They should be the ones directing the security team paid for by the Barlow, but it should be under the control of the Rialto so that they can have the area monitored to their satisfaction. And hopefully if they're doing the job or not. I don't know if that's going to be a help with it, but I think that that's part of the frustration, is that there are supposedly people monitored there, but they're not doing their job. So it's just a concern. And I also, as Debbie mentioned, the kind of a week by week monitoring, because what I look for is if there is a problem, has it been resolved? What has been done to resolve it? Not that it just continues every week and then promises are made. So I know it's a different time and new promises being made, but I'm torn between those issues. Again, I think it's a great community event. I would support going to 8 o'clock. Like I said, there's other stages there. Why not? They can stop at 7:30 if they like, but that way there's no issue with some stopping, some not. If they choose to stop whenever they want to, I think that's fine. But I have those concerns, and I don't know if, given how many chances the Barlows has had and how often Rialto's had the problems, to continue that. But at this point, those are my concerns.
Thanks. Zach, you want to say something else?
Well, I think just really speaking to Debbie's question about what the city can do. And I think one reason these are renewable permits is so we can have exactly this discussion. And I think that as Everett points out, there is a history of good intentions, but poor results around this issue. So I think it's incumbent on us to set conditions that are more onerous and more specific around monitoring the parking in that particular lot. And I think that is the remedy. it will remain to be seen whether it works. But one thing that's clear from the input here from both the applicant and the business owners is that everybody wants to make it work. We all support this event. So I think that having a condition that requires professional security at that location, not a guy in a truck, but a professional security company providing the security, maybe even a security plan that is written for how it's going to work, so that if there's shortcomings, they are specific and can be addressed in future applications, or indeed partway through the year. But I would say that the responsibility and the thing we can do to remedy the issue is make a condition that's a little more onerous around monitoring there.
Everett?
Yeah, the other thing I think that was brought up is, is there some way, rather than be a negative for the Rialto? I don't know, with that many people there, there's got to be some way that it could be beneficial. I don't think it's, a discount would have to be subsidized by another organization other than Rialto, but I don't know if, this just might be crazy talk, but having a booth outside selling popcorn and refreshments, I don't know those types of things, but somehow that they could benefit from all those people there, promote their theater and make it a positive while we're there. So
Carrie, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, this is Sue Drury, the owner of the theater park lot, the property owner, did have a question about what she calls Johnson Street. And, I had to look this up the first time last year when she talked about that. So I do want to just note something, because it may actually help provide a solution that the commission consider, and if the applicant's open to it. So this is the parking lot, obviously, for the Rialto. This is Johnson Street, and it actually does provide parking, and I might need Sue's help to understand this. Obviously, you can see the number of spaces at the Barlow up to there. I don't know if it's a double loaded parking or not, but I did ask her, and it looks like it's she does rent that for $200 a day, and it's at least 50 to 75 spaces. So I don't know if that's something the applicant would be open to. Obviously, if there's a parking monitor at the Rialto, they can in some ways kind of guide them to parking that's right there until that's filled at least, or, and then everyone else who's parking down on Morris Street isn't looking to, try to park in that lot. That's one solution. And I did have a question just in terms of response to Kai's comment about a financial penalty. We do have penalties in our municipal code for violations of the municipal code. Technically I believe that can include violations of a use permit. But I would need to check with the city attorney on that, if that was a direction the commission wanted to go. But I can try to sort of email him now if that is based on the commission's direction. And Chair Fritz, I know, I'm sorry, that's sort of a last minute idea that just kind of popped into my head. It's not part of the staff report, and I apologize for that. I don't know if you want to get a reaction from Jim or Jennifer, just in terms of thoughts on either of those ideas as the applicants.
Sure. I mean, Jim or Jennifer, do you have a thought about that renting of those spaces, as Carrie mentioned?
Well, my thought would be to just assure you that we will have two, and I'll speak with Jennifer about this, but in terms of solving the problem of, we will have two paid professional security guards for the rest of Peacetown. We have 13 more weeks available. that space is kind of like weird, even though there's I guess there are parking spaces there, but it's kind of a weird space. You got to go around the dumpsters to get there. Anyway, but the other thing I would like to kind of put out to the Rialto is we put out a newsletter to a couple thousand people, letting them know who's playing at Peacetown. But I'd love to just be able to put who's playing at the Rialto, what time of the starting times for things. We want you guys to be successful, and I really, Jennifer's the same way. We want to take our responsibility very seriously in keeping your lot clear for your customers. But we also want to drive some customers to your theater, because I know more people are watching at home now that COVID's hit, but there's nothing better than the experience of watching it in the movie theaters. And I really appreciate that we have such a quality music the theater here in town, and I use you guys a lot. So I want other people to do the same, and I want Peacetown to benefit the Rialto, not to your detriment. So I hope you hear me loud and clear on that.
I'm wondering if there's a timed check-in, since Peacetown is happening every week, we have a planning commission hearing in 2 weeks. Can we get a, feedback from, the next 2 weeks, tomorrow and next week, and get a report from the Rialto at that meeting to find out how things are going, and have this as a conditional use permit that's conditioned for the next 2 weeks, that make sure everyone's on their best behavior for the next 2 weeks before we authorize it for the rest of the summer. Any feedback or thoughts about that from other commissioners?
Yeah, I'd support that.
Is that something we could do, Carrie or John? Can we do something like that?
Yes. So I
condition
think
that we check in 2 weeks or something?
I'm thinking about it, Paul, just in terms of the logistics of the correct manner to handle that. So I did at a staff level authorize tomorrow's event. So the commission does not need to do that. What I believe what you can do, and so there's a question of when we have an appeal period for any decision the planning commission makes. It's 7 days, so it would be next Tuesday for next Wednesday's event. You certainly could approve the single event on that next Wednesday, and then you'd have your next meeting before the next meeting. Just so the commission is aware, you can ask to review a use permit at any time. And so that's not a problem in terms of agendizing. But I guess what we're talking about here is a split approval. So, you're allowed to approve however any part of the use permit. So yes, you can approve just a certain number of events and then ask to review it.
Or can we approve the whole thing tonight, and then at our next meeting, ask to be put on the agenda? We want to check in to make sure that this is going well, or else we're going to revoke it if things are not going well over the next 2 weeks. Does that make sense? Or would it be better to just do the one event but if we just do the one event, then we have to come back in 2 weeks and approve the rest of the summer if it is going well. So we have to agendize it kind of either way, I guess.
Yeah, from a legal notice, it's actually easier to do a partial approval because we would have to do a whole new notice on a potential revocation, and that would probably confuse a lot of people. I think those who are interested are here tonight. And so I think what you're saying, if that's the way the commission wants to proceed, should be pretty clear to everyone that this is there's a 2 week kind of trial period leading up to a continued public hearing by the commission in terms of a approval for the rest of the season.
Zach?
Yeah, sorry. I think that if you're going to do something like that, I think that we should try and approve a good portion, perhaps, the next 4 weeks, and ask that that Kerry do a staff approval of the rest of the event, assuming there's no ongoing issues. So it can happen potentially without any planning commission time. Kerry, would you see that as a problem? So in other words, if we was to say, approve till, I don't know, beginning of July or middle of July, and then it could go to a staff approval for the remainder. So split it, but not have it come back.
I would say I would want the commission to be very clear, if there are any complaints or, if there's a complaint 1 week out of the 5, what's okay? Is it just, everything's working swimmingly, which I think what everyone here wants. It would probably, rather than delegating your power to me, I would probably recommend that you put it on a consent calendar to, continue it to the date certain for the remainder of the series, and just put it on the consent calendar if there's not an issue. If there is an issue, then, have a public hearing, a sort of continued public hearing for that. And I will need to check with the city attorney to see if we need to renotice that, and that would certainly be helpful in that way.
I mean, frankly, my preference would be to approve the entire thing with some kind of check-in, Paul. But I hear what you're saying and understand your thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think a check-in is good, and I would like to actually have it come back to the commission so we can have, hear for ourselves how it's going, and not just rely on staff to do that. And I'm open to whatever mechanism seems to make the most sense, but I just want to make sure that, we're being responsive. And I believe Peacetown wants, like Jim said, like they're trying to support the community and make everyone successful. And I'm sure they don't want to see the Rialto hurt by this. And I certainly don't either. I don't think any of us do, but we want to make sure that, rules are being followed and that lot is being kept open. So I think it makes sense for us to hear back and not just have it go through the summer as then, chaos develops and no one's going to feel good about that. But I think we need to do our part and hear if it's 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is. And just, I'm not sure exactly the best way to structure that. I'll lean on Kerry for that. Debbie?
I just wanted to address what Kerry said earlier about, what does the commission think about a potential monetary, penalty, and that she could reach out to the city attorney. And I think that would be a great idea. I love having something tangible instead of open-ended.
In terms of having a, what do you mean? I guess I'm not sure what you mean by having a
Kerry.
financial.
Yeah, Kerry had asked earlier what the planning commissioners think about having a monetary penalty for not meeting the terms of the use permit. So I'm just
right. That was one of our questions from the public comment, and normally with the use permit, yes, you can revoke it. We do have a section in our code for penalties for violation of the zoning ordinance, which is $500 per instance. And, I think you'd want to make it very clear when that would be applicable, and add that into the conditions of approval. I would also need, want some caveat that it's if determined by the city attorney to be a valid way of handling this, because it's normally it's it's more for things like illegal habitation of a shed or something like that. A fence that someone's builds that's way too high and they refuse to move it, kind of thing. I
think personally, I'd rather just, instead of a monetary penalty, I'd just go for revoking the use permit and saying, if it's continues to be a problem, we're going to have to shut it down, and not. I don't think a monetary penalty is necessarily going to do anything. I think the issue would be it's just not working. I don't think money's going to make it work any better. Personally, that's my opinion. Kathy?
I'm not muted. One of my thoughts was, rather than revoking the permit, would be to scale the stages back to some extent. I don't know whether the market would be reduced or the attendance would be reduced, which would be the goal, is to make it possible for people to park without using those spaces. But that might be another alternative, is to just reduce how much happens on that one night as the penalty, rather than revoking the whole event.
Yeah.
Doesn't really solve the problem of management of the parking lot. And that's what we're really trying to do, is accomplish management of the parking lot. I mean, do we need to have 4 guards there? That would be better than stopping the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly don't want to stop it either, but I also feel that, I don't know. I mean, it's unfortunately such a convenient parking lot. No matter how many stages are there, I feel that people are just going to be drawn to that parking lot just because it's right there. Unless the only stage is the Crooked Goat, which is the furthest one away, probably, you know.
So it really becomes a matter of how many guards do you need to protect the parking lot?
Yeah.
So we just need more guards until it's effective. How many do you want?
Yeah. And in some ways, like, I kind of feel like I don't even necessarily want to say a number of guards. It's just, you can't let anyone park in that lot. If you need 10 guards or 2 guards or whatever you need, do what you need to do to make it work. And I don't personally care how many that is. I don't know that we need to specify a number. I think it's just, no one can park in that lot. Do whatever it takes to make sure that doesn't happen. Everett?
I think with regards to cutting back on the stage, like, I think you're right, Paul, that regardless of the size of the event, people are going to park there, and yeah, you know, it's, the idea is to make sure that that goal of no one parking there, that's one of the goals. But we also, and you know, going back to my thoughts on having the Rialto kind of control that monitoring, is because we also don't want to create any negativity towards the Rialto. And if you've got a parking attendant who's not sensitive to that, and he's just telling people, hey, you can't park here, you know, just, it reflects bad on Rialto that they're the ones doing that. And so we don't want to do that either, which is, again, how does it need to be handled? What do you say to an individual if there's an issue? How do you handle that portion of it? You know, it's I can see people being kind of put off. You know, you park there, you know, take the time to get all your stuff out of there, whatever you need to, and then, you know, as you're walking away, now someone comes and tells you, hey, you can't park there, you need to move your car. So you know, I think it's not only handling the event, but how is that handled? And again, you know, it just seems that with Rialto being in control of that, they can have it done the way that it's supposed to be done, and, you know, directing people and telling people so it doesn't create any negativity.
In some ways, though, I think to create a non-negative view of the Rialto, I think it should be the Peacetown. It should be more Peacetown branded. Like, you know, the guards should wear a Peacetown shirt and say, look, as a representative of Peacetown, we're telling you not to park here. You know, this is because I think if you put the Rialto in that position, it does make more of a negative connotation towards the Rialto. The Rialto is being exclusion. We're not allowed to park here because of the Rialto. Whereas if it's Peacetown volunteers or Peacetown hired security saying, no, you cannot park here. This is not part of Peacetown. This is a separate business, you know, and that way it's more Peacetown is telling us we can't park here, not Rialto is telling us we can't park here.
And my intent wasn't to have Rialto have security guards there with their, you know, that they're near. I'm just saying that they should have some say as to how those security guards are conducting, you know, monitoring the parking lot, and, you know, what they're saying and how they're doing it. Hired by, you know, they could be hired by Barlow, uniforms, say Peacetown, but then, okay, now, you know, how is that handled, or at least, you know, let it be known that they do have a say, and that's, you know, part of it. So I'm not sure exactly how to address that, but I think that needs to be one of the conditions, because, you know, something doesn't happen or the guy's not doing his job and Rialto's complaining versus, you know, they're the ones that are directing them.
I see what you mean. Zach, did you have something else to say?
Not really, except that my preference would be, I would just really point out there seems to be a real will to solve this. And I think one thought that occurred to me was, Kerry, I guess a question for you, Kerry, is can this application go forward, be approved, and then have a check-in? And if it has a check-in with the commission, can the commission revise conditions of approval partway through? Or is it a done deal?
Absolutely, yes.
So in that case, what I would really favor here is an approval of this event with adequate security, a minimum of 2. And, you know, and I agree with you, if Peacetown can be involved in getting badges for the security guards that say Peacetown on them or whatever it is, I agree with you. It's all about getting on with each other. And I think the will exists here. So if we can take people at their word and at the same time as being responsive to the concerns, I feel approving this application may be the way forward, with the check-in perhaps in 4 weeks, with the possibility of revising conditions of approval at that time if necessary. Or absolutely worst case would be revocation, but I can't imagine that we would get to that point. I think there is enough goodwill and good intent here that we should be able to move forward with this application.
Thanks, Zach. Everett.
Yeah, you know, I'd like to, because this is so much involved with the Rialto, I think just as we can take additional comments from the applicant, I think that I'd like to open it up to have any comments from the representative from Rialto, because again, we're talking about all these conditions of approval and so forth. Yeah, I know he spoke as part of the public, but I'd like to give him another opportunity if he has anything further to say or to you know, to comment on some of the stuff that's been said here, because there's been a lot of stuff said and proposed, and you know, I'd like to give him another opportunity to speak on that. Yeah.
Is anyone opposed to that? Okay, that's thank you, Everett, for that. Kai, would you like to make any other kind of comments about what you've heard us discussing?
Well, I'm very pleased that you guys are taking this seriously. Thank you. I guess I like the idea of the parking lot monitors or guards or whatever we want to call them, you know, being branded as Peacetown Concert Series. I'm on the fence about whether our people should be doing it, because, you know, then how do I make sure that I get paid for that additional expense that I have to take on? And that doesn't seem right. So, you know, that I have to go then, you know, pursue getting paid. So, you know, I think that we just need better monitoring of our lot. And I know that Sue, you know, feels that our lot includes Johnson Street, and so that needs to be part of the monitoring. I think she expects everyone to know what Johnson Street means, and, you know, unless you're living it, you don't know it means that, you know, kind of nebulous strip between us and what the Barlow refers to as the theater building. And you know, I think 2 guards is a great idea. And I think that, you know, we check back in a month, or we check back, you know, every month or something. I don't know. I think that, you know, one check-in and then, you know, we're back to where we were. If there's no penalty for non-compliance is problematic. I mean, I think that I still like the idea of a financial penalty, because I think that, you know, revoking the whole thing is kind of extreme, but I think that, you know, a financial penalty has consequences, and that gets people's attention, you know. So I just, you know, it's all, you know, we can have a lot of good intentions, but it's really the follow through, and that's where the problem has been. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Excuse me, Paul, I just wanted to clarify something. My intent wasn't to have Rialto hire anybody or have their own people. Basically, the guards that would be hired by the Barlow would meet with the Rialto management to get instructions as to how to do their job to monitor that parking lot. That was what I was talking about. So there is no reimbursement. There's no of their, but they have some say as to, hey, this is how, we want you to monitor the area.
Right. I hear what you're saying, but what that sets up is, okay, these people are paying me and this person is giving me my instructions. And if those two things are in conflict, who's my boss? And having been in situations where, it wasn't clear who my boss was, I don't want to put anyone in that position.
Yeah. Well, I think it would just need to be made clear that, they're monitoring your lot and it has to be done a certain way. And if it's not, then it's just as a problem as to whoever hired them. But anyway, just a suggestion.
Carrie?
Just a suggestion for that perhaps there's a meeting with with Jennifer, the security, and Jim and and Kai, just to have a meeting and understand what the specific concerns are of the Rialto, just before the next. I mean, I don't know if you have time tomorrow, Kai, before the next event, or if this could be arranged, but that. And I realize that takes your time, Kai, but it might help just to understand.
I'm not able to meet at the moment because I really don't want this in a public forum, but I'm at home for very specific reasons.
Got it. I think the Barlow could probably arrange a Zoom meeting.
And Roxanne is going away for the rest of the week tomorrow. So,
okay. And it doesn't necessarily need to be between tomorrow's events. I'm just thinking, in the spirit of cooperation.
Right.
If you're willing to meet at some point, even via Zoom, and obviously there's a reason the city is doing meetings via Zoom. So.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's amenable. Afternoons are better than mornings. So.
Right. And maybe that's a suggestion and not a condition of approval. It's up to the commission.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear what the issue is. The issue is people for Peace Town are parking in the Rialto's lot, and the Rialto doesn't want that. So I don't know that. I mean, if Kai wants to participate in that discussion, I don't know that Kai probably cares how it's done. I think he probably just wants it done. He just doesn't want people parking in his lot, which is understandable. So, I think whether or not Kai participates in a meeting with everyone, it's up to him. And I think we all know what the goal is and the intent is. However, whatever the process is, we're not going to control that either. I guess I have a question for, I'm not sure who, but so what we're calling the Johnson Street lot, do people park there? I don't know that I've seen people parking there before. And how do you actually do that? Do people park there for the movie theater? Kai, go ahead.
No, they don't generally park there for the movie theater. What happens is when parking gets tight in the area, people get creative. And so they enter. Do you have a pointer, Carrie? Yeah. Actually, most of the people that enter, they enter from either right there where Carrie's pointing on McKinley Street, or if you go to the other end of the lot, they enter from the Spirit Works parking lot, which doesn't make the Spirits Works parking people very happy either. And
can that just be blocked off somehow? Is there a way to?
Well, what happens is that's that all of our garbage service for the property, which is more than just the theater, is on Johnson Street. So you can't totally block that off, because then there's no way for
garbage pickup,
Ecology, or whoever it is, whatever their name is this week, to it's changed so many times, to pick up. And then also the Smokehouse, they have that little music stage.
Mm-hmm.
And their musicians access that stage through, they tend to park right there so that they can, back their truck up or their vehicle or whatever and unload onto the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that is used somewhat for parking for, those businesses. So I don't think the patisserie uses it at all, but.
Okay. Well,
under our point.
Yeah. Okay. To bring this back to the commission, I guess, do we need to craft another condition, or is this just something that we can say, Carrie, you want to agendize this for the first meeting in July to review how things are going?
Yeah, so give me a second. I have been sort of trying to track where I think the commission's going, so I can hopefully help with the motion. Let me.
Also,
and
actually,
yeah. I
Zach,
can
do you
craft a
have something
motion,
you
just
wanted
give
to
me-
add?
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to do a first stab at crafting a motion, if you like, and see if
Actually,
we can
there's
build them.
I want to actually clarify a couple of conditions before we get to that. And actually, this is kind of related to this parking question. So the condition number 4, which is on page 5 of the staff report for commissioners or whoever's following along, reads: a professional security firm shall be present and monitor parking areas to ensure the public does not park in private lots for the event. And so far we've been talking about, a security firm monitoring the Rialto parking lot. And I want to be clear, or I think we should be clear in the conditions that that's the lot we're talking about and not every private parking lot downtown. I don't know how other commissioners feel about that, but I just feel it's a little bit broad right now. And since seem to be mostly concerned about the Rialto, it's what the discussion has been about. I would like to include that, be that specific for that condition. And I agree with Kathy. I think we should eliminate condition number 8 since it's kind of a repeat of number 2. And I think there's just a grammar in number 5. It should be no public property. I'm kind of, number 5 is a little, I'm not sure what that is saying. There's something.
The intent, yeah, Chair Fritz, the intent of that is because we did have a application for Head West as part of the special event permit to close part of the public part of McKinley Street. This is making clear that no public areas are being used for the event, because it requires a special process, a different process through Public Works and Engineering, insurance, and a lot of other things.
So should it read no public property is approved as part of this permit?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. That is a typo.
Okay, okay. I was just trying to, it didn't make sense as I was reading it. And I was also okay with, Everett had brought up earlier, allowing 8 o'clock is the end of the music time, since it sounded like there may be some, stages going to 8. I don't want anyone to get into trouble if someone goes past 7:30. So if other commissioners are okay with changing the time to 8, which would be in finding number 3, and I don't know if that shows up in the conditions, condition number 7.
Mm-hmm.
Change to 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So those are my recommendations. If anyone has any thoughts about that or agree or disagree. Kathy?
In number 4, are we specifying that we require 2 security personnel at the Rialto lot? Is that what your intention was for number 4?
I just wanted to say the Rialto lot. I personally don't care how many are there. If we want to condition at least 2 as a minimum, I would be okay with that. But again, I just want there to be no one parking in that lot, no matter how many guards it takes.
I would think a minimum 2, because it's already not working with what they have, so we should increase it.
I'm okay with that. Anyone else?
No, I agree. I think it should call out at the only parking lot that is referring to is the Rialto parking lot.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you could extend it to some of the industrial lots down on Morris, but we all know that they're talking specifically about the Rialto lot. So I think it's okay to say the Rialto and other private lots. with a minimum of 2 security guards at the Rialto lot.
But are we expecting those 2 guards to be monitoring those other private lots?
There doesn't seem to have been a need, so I would say that in the same way you don't care how many there are, providing they're speaking to this issue.
I guess so. I would say I would just rather say just the Rialto lot and not mention other private lots personally.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do think that Kathy, I agree with Kathy, we should specify a minimum of 2 or, just because we've talked about that specifically more than anything else. Typically, I would agree with you.
That's fine with me. Anyone else? Thoughts about that?
I would agree with that.
Linda Kelly here.
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, I agree with where you're all going. I just wanted to just remind Jim Corbett that the community events building where you're going to have potentially the latest music inside the Barlow is across the street from residential neighborhoods. And they have been very patient and tolerant, but just wanted to give you a gentle reminder, Johnson Street and Flynn, I just don't want them to be forgotten and impacted any more than they are with events. I don't know if Jim heard that or not.
He's nodding, Linda,
He's
and giving a thumbs up.
Who's giving a thumbs up?
Jim.
Oh, thank you, Jim. And I'm fine with everything else that's going down.
All right. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
All right. So does anyone want to take a shot at a motion, or Carrie, you want to give us a primer?
So I can actually, I've tried to track the changes. So let me just share my screen and I'll show you the Word document that I've been marking up, and you can tell me where I got it wrong. Sorry, let me zoom in to make this a little bit. There we go. For item 4, a professional security firm shall be present and provide a minimum of 2 parking monitors to 2 parking guards to monitor
Okay.
2 parking guards to ensure the public does not park in the Rialto parking lot. That's the address during the event. Parking/security shall be branded as Peacetown Concert Series. And then for the music, let's see, I think was the decision to change it all to just 8 p.m.
Yeah, I think just 8 p.m.
Okay. And then the second sound condition is being deleted. The number 2 is being kept, and this I just kind of slid in. The Planning Commission will continue the public hearing to review the temporary use permit at its July 12th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission may modify conditions of approval of the TUP at that time, just to make it clear that that is one of the conditions. And I believe
So just to clarify, can I just clarify that means we are approving the entire series, but with the continuation of the public hearing in 4 weeks.
That's how it's currently written. Whoever makes the motion gets to clarify what they want to do with that one. These are just the changes that I'm trying to track for.
Yeah,
I think you just want to make it clear that the commission, basically, I mean, I know it's kind of known, but it reserves the right to, at a future meeting, also review it. So it's not, I mean, we don't, at least just have that.
Yeah, and this could also say may modify the conditions of approval or revoke the use permit at that time. So if you wanted to make sure you have that understanding.
And I think, and this allows us, at that meet, if we meet in a month and we say, okay, we want to review it again in another month, we can add a condition or just agendize it to review in another month.
Yep, and that is because you can modify the conditions of approval. Yes, you can assess that at that time. And then we're also kind of continuing the hearing, and everyone who's aware and interested in this knows the date tonight, so they'll know to show up. So.
And then the recommended findings, we also need to change the time until 8.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
So I would be happy to move to approve the application as amended.
And I would second that. Do I need to raise my hand?
Nope, that's okay. Speak out.
I would second that.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other further discussion or comments by the commission? Seeing and hearing none, then I will ask for a vote on the motion.
Thank you, Chair Fritz. Commissioner Kelly.
Aye.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Burns.
Aye.
Commissioner Dauch.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ottinger.
Aye.
And Chair Fritz.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously 6-0 as amended. And I will ask Jennifer, just as a point, if you are able to get the 2 guards for tomorrow, that would, I think, be great. Technically, this wouldn't start until the approval is final in 1 week. There is a 7-day appeal period, and then this will be final, unless it's appealed, in which case it would be scheduled for the city council.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Good luck, and I hope we can successfully protect the Rialto's parking lot. We can come back in a month and hear how well this has been going for everybody.
And be a true peace town.
Yes, and be a true peace town. And hey, Kai, I would say throw out some flyers, have people handing out flyers with your schedule for the week in Peace Town, and schedule movies to start at 7:45. Get some more business for yourself. All right, thanks, everyone. I would like to actually take a 5-minute break if we could before we get to the next item, which also might be a little bit, take a little while. So I will see everyone back here. How about 8 o'clock? 6 minutes away.
Yes,
You are
Jim,
dismissed, Jim.
your
Thank
item
you.
is completed. Thank you.
Well, I really thank you so much, especially Carrie, who's been patient with me. I'm a kind of a spacey musician sometimes, and I don't take care of the stuff. So, but Jennifer and I are going to get together, and again, I would like to really reach out to Kai and say, how can we promote the theater? Because really, you do want people to park in your lot, but you want them parking in your lot to go to your movies.
Yes.
So that's what we want too. And so I'm going to check your schedule, and I'm going to send it out to everybody on our mailing list, because we want you to be successful. We want people to park and come to the movies. So thank you, Commission, for letting us continue for right now, and please do come down to Peace Town and enjoy the music and the good vibes that we provide. So thank you. And if you come, you have to bring 2 people. That's the rule.
That's good. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
I see three of us. Linda, Everett, Debbie, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay,
I'm here.
Everett, catching him mid-chew. Linda, are you back with us?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Let's get started again. So our next item is Habitat for Humanity Townhouse Project at 333 North Main Street. John, I guess, is going to give the staff report.
Yep, thank you. So the project Habitat for Humanity proposes 4 two-story townhomes, which consist of 3 bedrooms and a 1-car garage. Each townhome also includes a private rear patio, as well as a partially covered front porch that face North Main Street. The project is requesting a conditional use permit for residential only within a commercial district, as it's located within the edge of the downtown core in Sebastopol. The project also includes a tentative map and also has a tree protection and design review, which will come at a later meeting with the design and tree board. I also want to mention that the project is category exempt from CEQA requirements, section 15303B, which includes a duplex or similar multifamily residential, totaling no more than 4 dwelling units in an urbanized area. And then I also wanted to make mention that the parking requirements that the board heard at its preliminary review of this project in September 28th of last year. We were able to note that on-street parking is an allowed requirement, which would help this project meet its 8 parking spaces required to move forward. I also see that Jeff Katz is here from the applicant team, who will provide a more in-depth explanation and presentation of the project on behalf of Habitat for Humanity.
Great. Thanks, John.
You want me to start, Jeff, and just introduce for a minute?
Let me see if Commission has any questions of staff, and then we will go with introductions and your presentation, Steve. So do any commissioners have questions of staff at this point? Okay, I did have one question that I had asked John earlier, and I'll just make that question public just so other commissioners can hear. But I was questioning whether this project needed a conditional use permit for the use for the 100% residential, because it's an affordable project and we do allow affordable projects as a permitted use in the downtown core. And John, you want to give your response to me to the whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So affordable housing, by our definition, requires the units all be deed restricted for occupancy to very low, moderate income households. And this project, as it's proposed in the application, is privately owned per unit, so it would not meet that affordable housing criteria. The intent for the affordable housing section that's also within the resolution and policy goals is meant to state that the Habitat program is a more affordable means of home ownership than a private development company that would come in and do something like this.
Thanks, and I might have a clarifying question for the applicant, but I'll let them do the application or the presentation first. So, so yeah, so you're up, Steve. So if you want to make your introductions, and then whoever is going to make your presentation.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul. So good evening, you guys. You've had a long night already, so we'll be as concise as we can. I'm Steve Kent. I'm a board member with Habitat for Humanity in Sonoma County. I'm here with our CEO, Wayne Kleefeld, our Director of Construction, Rick Oberdofer, and as you know, Jeff Katz, our architect. We all understand the need for residential housing in areas like Sebastopol. And we believe our plans are well suited to the site and have a valuable addition to the downtown Sebastopol. The location provides great walkability and access to many resources, making it an ideal location for our families. We're looking forward to once again building homes in Sebastopol for Habitat families. Thank you for working with us on this important project. Jeff will now walk you through our updated design, which we hope you will find responsive to your feedback from our prior meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. John, is it possible to get permission to share my screen?
Yes, I believe you should have it already. If not,
It's saying it's disabled.
okay. Carrie, is that something that you can give Jeff, or do we need to?
Yeah, so Zach or Sam from our tech support, can you give Jeff sharing capabilities? It should be just a second, Jeff.
Sure. Sorry to keep everybody waiting.
Problem.
There we go. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm Jeff Katz, and I'm pleasure to be here this evening to present this to you. We did make a prior presentation to you back latter part of last year. We also presented to design review. Those were preliminary to gauge any concerns on the city's part. And we think that the package we've submitted here to you now has addressed those issues. Just going to walk you quickly through the project. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the site. Got quite a bit of slope from one corner of the property to another. We do have existing units behind, and you'll see later in our presentation how we're addressing both the grading as well as the view issues. Just a refresher that this was the design that we had presented previously. We did have some comments about the architecture and its appropriateness for the Main Street location. And so as you'll see later in our presentation, we have modified the design to address those items. The project itself, this is overlaid over a Google map. So again, North Main Street, we have the existing access drive to the units in the back that we are using to access our garages. So we have 4 individual garages off of that access drive, and then the 4 units that front the street. Grading plan, which I'm happy to go into in more detail later if you have any specific questions. But essentially, the units are all set at different elevations to account for the change in elevation across the street, and the garages are also set at different elevations to account for the change in elevation on the driveway. We developed a landscape plan for the project. We are removing some existing trees along this property. And so we have this proposed landscape plan to address that. Each of the units has an individual patio on the east side or back side of the property. And I'll show you a drawing in a minute that shows you the access from the garages to each of the units. I would remind you that there is an existing retaining wall along the back side of the property, as well as a retaining wall easement here. And so we are installing a new retaining wall along the east and south corner of the property to lower this grade and to flatten this side out while maintaining that access easement or the retaining wall easement that exists now. So again, the site plan. So the easternmost garage has a walkway to the patio to serve townhouse number 2. This garage has actually a door direct access into townhouse number 1. And then these 2 garages closest to the street have street sidewalk access to those units. So that's how the access and connection from the garages to the units work. So here you can see the 4 garages and then the 4 units. I'm going to show you an enlarged plan in a minute, but this is the ground level plan and then our second floor plan. So the individual units on the ground level got a small front porch that faces the street, living room, dining room, kitchen, and a half bath downstairs with laundry facilities. And then upstairs, we have 3 bedrooms and a bathroom, as well as a little study nook with a balcony. I didn't mention, but the patios that I talked about earlier have direct access off of the unit itself. And then I would point out that in response to some of the comments we heard, so now you're looking at a roof plan for the unit. We do have an outdoor stair on the front of the garage building that accesses a roof deck with, it's not really a green roof, but we are proposing raised bed gardens up on this roof deck to serve the units. These are the building elevations. I think it's a little easier to see in the rendered view that I'll show you in a moment, but basically we have a combination of some metal siding elements as well as painted cement board or hardy board type siding on the units. So just to show you what that looks like in a rendered view, basically we've adapted the architecture from what we'd showed you previously that had a series of gable roofs to go to flat roofs, try and create something that was a little bit more contemporary looking to provide a little bit more visual interest as someone is driving down Main Street. And then we did provide a section through, this is the roof garden area here. And then this section is intended to show you the grade elevation changes from the units behind. So with that, that concludes my presentation of the drawings. We're very happy to be here presenting to you tonight, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions of the applicant from the commission? Seeing none, I actually do have, oh, Kathy, go ahead. You're muted.
On one of the maps, I saw that there's a lot 5 and 6. That was the first 2 garages off of Main Street. Are those purchased separately, or do they actually belong to the unit where it showed they had access?
Yeah, sorry, the way that everything is set up is each unit has a corresponding garage that is deeded as part of that unit. So the other 2, the one is contiguous with the unit itself, and the other is, I can bring that drawing back up if you'd like, but essentially every unit has a standalone garage that is part of the property that they are assigned.
I was just wondering why on some drawings they were labeled lot 5 and 6. There was one drawing I saw that labeled those as 5 and 6.
Might be, might be the tentative map. Jeff.
Yeah, I actually
maybe it was the tentative.
I actually pulled that drawing out of the presentation because it was kind of repeating some of this information.
Okay.
So I apologize, I don't have that for you.
Okay, as long as there aren't 2 other lots that, and then
we can, Vice Chair Andrew, we can pull it up on the, actually I'll pull it up right now. So the
Yeah.
question is these two lots that are actually part of the, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a little confusing the way it's structured there. So we can request some clarification, but the intent is that each unit has a garage that is part of that unit.
Okay, it's not a separate purchase.
No.
Okay.
Effort?
Thank you. 1 second here. So I don't know if this is a question for staff or not, but so some of the parking that will be in the front on Main Street, is any of that designated for, say, delivery or someone bringing some furniture in or an appliance? Would they basically park on that Main Street and then bring it up, or would they go back to the back of the unit? How do you envision that working?
So those spaces out front wouldn't be, there would be public parking spaces. So if that space was available at that time and it made the most amount of sense for a delivery truck to use that space, I think that's what they would do. And if those 4 spaces out front are not designated to the project itself, it's just additional parking for the project as allowed in our code.
Right, and so, I mean, we've all seen where moving vans or deliveries pull up to just a regular street space along the street and use that to deliver furniture and whatnot. And so that would, they could do that, or they could arrange to do it off of the easement, like one of the lots, it could be through the garage into the unit. And I guess if the applicant has some other ideas of how that might be facilitated off of the easement is a through easement, so it's not available for parking. Although obviously UPS and whatnot do sometimes, and I don't know what they do down that street for the remainder of the street.
I guess I would just add that only one of the units has direct access from the garage into the unit. So the balance of them would require any sort of deliveries coming in through the front door. We do have one unit that has rear access off of that drive, but again, the other 2 units don't have any sort of direct access except off of the street. So if there was no available parking on the street, then any sort of delivery would have to make some other accommodation.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Linda Kelly here.
Go ahead, Linda.
I think my issues before were accessibility and going up a wheelchair or front porch. Can't really access it from the back, even if you could get to the other 2 units from back there. There's no bedrooms on the bottom floor, so very difficult to age in place or to have, a medical need. And just very concerned that we're losing an opportunity to have some accessible, or at least one accessible unit.
Understood. We have discussed this internally. It is a challenging site due to the grades. The one thing that we did talk about was providing infrastructure both at the front porch area and within the unit to accommodate future lift if whomever purchased the unit needed to get access both to the unit and to the second floor. So that is something that we certainly can look to provide.
Okay, and I guess this is for staff as well as the applicant. We did discuss if the garages could or could not be developed into an ADU, and how does that fit into this mix?
I do remember that conversation from the preliminary review we had.
I think our intention, I'm muted. No.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think our intention was that the garages would be deeded with the units. They couldn't be sold separately. We need the garages to meet the parking requirements. So it wasn't our intention that they would be saleable as ADUs.
ADUs actually aren't sellable because they're part of the property, and it's just an additional housing unit, or so that's why if those are owned by each of the units, again, I have to maybe ask staff, could they be developed into an ADU? Is there, what would you say would be the barriers?
Once the units are built, and John, you can nod or disagree with me and let me know. There would be nothing stopping someone from converting a garage to an ADU unless you make it a condition of approval at this moment, as part of the final map. Because if they were proposing it now, they would have to provide the garage spacing and they would have to find a way to provide the ADU. But under the state regulations, you cannot stop someone from converting a parking space or a enclosed garage to an ADU, even if it reduces the parking on the site below what is required. Is that correct, John?
Yep.
All right.
That's what I thought.
I just want to jump in and say, from a practical standpoint, I think it'd be really challenging to make any of these an ADU, with the exception of maybe the one that's actually attached to its unit. But the fact that they're separated, I mean, to try to get utilities to one of those other garages, water and sewer and gas or whatever, I think that would be, I think it would be a daunting task, and I doubt anyone would take it on just because it would be pretty challenging to work that out, since they're not contiguous to the unit itself.
Right, and Chair Fritz, one other thing I would note is that usually, and I'm not sure what the civil engineer who did the tentative map is thinking. Oftentimes I've seen garage structures not be lots, but be like a G1 space, and it is attached to the unit in that way without being a separate lot. And all of those units actually sit on a common area. That's much more common. And I know the city engineer did include a condition of approval that the final map needs to be prepared by a civil engineer. And Jeff and Steve, I don't know if your engineer is here tonight or not to maybe address that question. Okay.
He's not here tonight.
Got it. And so that is something when we look at the conditions, if it's not clear with the way it's designated right now, we can make sure there's I'm not an engineer, but I think I can help the commission craft a condition if they wanted to regarding that.
Those were my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Everett?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, without going through a lot of expense or redesigning, are there things that can be done to facilitate at least a little easier down the road if it's going to be an ADU? If you know that ahead of time, are there things that can be done, or is it just not? Paul, when you were talking about how difficult, yeah, once it's built, I can see how all the roadblocks to do it. I'm just wondering, are there things that can be done to incorporate that might make it easier down the road, or is that just wishful thinking?
The way that each of these units is served from a utility standpoint, it would be very difficult to, in essence, tie into those same utilities that we're serving the individual unit. If having the ability to make these into ADUs down the road is something that is desired, we could look at how the utilities are run and try and create some stub outs, or at least the potential for that. Obviously, Steve didn't really touch on the cost issues, and we don't really want to focus on that tonight, but we all know that cost of construction has gone up since this meeting started tonight. So, we also want to be respectful of that.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying if there are things that can be done that might not be too expensive one way or the other, kind of keep that in mind. Anything that would make it easier down the road would be an improvement or positive.
I just had a question about, so the roof deck that's above the two garages, is that something that I'm imagining it would be available to all 4 units? And is that just something that, since it's sitting on top of 2 other privately owned properties, is that just like a CC&R description or something like that would allow the full community to access that roof deck?
That's how we're envisioning that, yes.
Okay. And then I just had a kind of a follow-up question, just my understanding of how Habitat works regarding my question about the affordability issue. So these are not deed restricted. So once someone, your first family, builds a unit, they've purchased the unit, then at that point it's kind of just on the open market for them, and they could sell it next year or 5 years, or how does that? Do that to sell it to another Habitat family, or how does that stay affordable? What's the mechanism for that?
I'm going to ask Wayne if he can answer that question. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to misstate it.
Yeah, they're deed restricted for 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that does
And
not.
if somebody wants to sell it within the 30 years, it basically comes back through Habitat to find a family. Is that correct, Wayne?
Correct. Yeah.
And not that this makes a big difference, but I guess to staff then, if these are individual lots that have a 30-year deed restriction on them for affordability, does that not meet our affordability definition?
I'll refer to Carrie, but I believe that would meet the requirements for the affordable housing definition.
If it is, so let's see, I'll need to review that with the code. Sorry, just out of curiosity, Paul, is there a reason you're asking this in relationship to the project approval, or are you just curious about?
I guess it's mostly just curious, but I guess it doesn't really make a difference. We're still looking at this tonight, and whether, I guess the question is, does it need a conditional use permit, or is it just a tentative map that we're reviewing? And I don't know in terms of procedure if it really makes a difference.
Sure, it would need to meet the definition of affordable housing, and let me look that up. I know for inclusionary housing, it needs to be deed restricted in perpetuity. But I don't know if it's voluntarily, being done voluntarily as a affordable housing, if that is the same case. So let me just do a quick look of that. And how long, what was the?
30 years.
30 years. 30 years.
30 years, okay. Okay, and then I guess the other thing I would want to confirm is that the income level met it's like at least the moderate restriction, which is 120% of median income.
That's our intention for sure.
Okay, okay. So
Our definition doesn't have a time on it.
Mm-mm.
It just has
Yeah.
it's very low, low, or moderate.
Sure, 30 years is a fairly long time. It used to be, I mean, I have seen actually deed restrictions that the city has that is that have been shorter. They've been more like 20 years or something. So I think that would be significant enough, should the commission concur, that it could be considered affordable housing. We would need to make that a condition of approval tonight for them to be exempt from the conditional use permit, because we don't have that anywhere in their application materials.
And again, like, I don't know, is it important or not? I don't know if there's a fee difference that they can get a credit
It's
back.
all on
or-
a deposit account, so it's
Okay.
the hours that we're working on the project.
And there's
so
no
there's
development
no-
fees related to that or anything like
Correct,
that.
there's no, other than the entitlements that you're reviewing, is it just the one or is it both of them? That's
Yeah.
it.
Okay, then I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's good to kind of just have that understanding, I think, personally.
Absolutely, yes.
And then one thing that hasn't come up, but was a question in the staff report, I just wanted to get everyone's feedback on, is this floor area ratio question. And so, the downtown core requires a floor area ratio of 1. And this project meets that requirement if the easement is excluded. And I'm okay with that interpretation. There's no kind of formal interpretation of that, and the staff was asking us to weigh in on that. So I just wanted to say that I am okay with that interpretation for this. So if anyone else has a comment one way or the other on that, or if you disagree, please let us know so we can talk about it.
So, and Chair Fritz, I just want to note that if there's no more questions, you might want to take public
Yeah.
comment. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Do that. I'm just kind of going through to make sure I covered all my questions. Yeah, Everett, go ahead.
I think it might be on there, but just for public information. So the material in between the walls of the residence, we're looking at other project and wanted to make sure that, with the close proximity that, sound and noise is kept to a minimum between the units. Wonder if you could comment on that, and any kind of environmental, I don't know, does it have the ability to catch rainwater or facilities for solar panels, that kind of thing available?
And so try and take those in order. So the sound attenuation between the units will be addressed by essentially a double wall system with sound insulation. We probably will have, we will have an acoustical engineer as part of the team taking a look and making any recommendations for how we treat that. But we certainly are going to be looking to create sound attenuation between the units. We have not incorporated at this point any rain harvesting components into this project. Certainly that's something that we can take a look at. If that's something that you want to make as a condition of the project, happy to address that. And I'm sorry, I lost the third item.
Solar panels, yes.
Solar panels, yes. So we are required by building code to make all buildings solar ready. And we have not yet assessed the cost of actually providing the panels, but the roof will be designed to accommodate those, and there will be conduit to the panel location so that either the project or the individual homeowners could add photovoltaics in the future.
And what about as far as the ability to charge an electric vehicle in the garage? Is that, or at least have it available to in the future do that? Is that
independent of the photovoltaics? You mean just to have charging capabilities in the garage? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know it may not be feasible, but at least if someone wanted to put something there, just like you have the solar panel ready, is there something that can be done there to facilitate that?
Absolutely. We can provide infrastructure and accommodate power to serve a charging station in each of the garages.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have anything to do with the photovoltaics, but certainly anybody purchasing these units could well and probably will down the road have electric vehicles that need charging.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions of the commission, from the commission? All right, seeing no one, I will open this up for public comment. So if you're a member of the public and you'd like to make a comment, please raise your virtual or actual hand and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And I see Renee to start off. Yep, you're muted. Usually in the lower left there.
There, I got it.
There you go.
Okay, I'm actually Bob. This is just Renee's computer.
Okay.
So I actually live at 337 North Main Street. I'm the president of the HOA here. So I have a few concerns. Drainage, how's that going to be handled, especially if they're flat tops? I brought it up in the last meeting about the plans are showing them using access to the driveway that's owned by Cypress Hill HOA and Main Street Village, which is behind us. How is that going to be handled? Because we have to pay for the upkeep. We have to pay for the taxes and everything on property that somebody is now using in their plan to have access to their dwelling. Last time I asked about garbage storage and pickup. How's that going to be handled? And then it was brought up about somebody living in a garage, because the one unit on the end, somebody actually could live in the garage because they're going to have full access to the house. So what's going to stop that from being turned into an apartment? And you're talking about it being affordable housing. How can it be affordable housing? I don't understand that when the properties are being sold. And let's see, that's like the fifth or sixth item is there's already a sign in the lot saying that these are coming when they haven't even been approved yet. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Bob. Any other member of the public wishing to speak on this item? Not seeing anyone, I will close the public comment and bring us back to the commission, and maybe if we can respond to some of Bob's questions. So regarding the driveway, I'm assuming there's an access easement that benefits this property. Can someone confirm that?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so there's an easement that whenever your development was built, Bob, that granted the developer, you know, the future developer of this property use of that driveway to access this parcel. So that would be in your deed someplace that is actually legally the case. Whether or not they're required to participate in the maintenance, I have no idea. That would be part of the, you know, the original documentation of that.
So yeah, and on that, so there are easement documents. I can see the just within the documents, the title reports and the grant deeds that were given as part of the project application. They start around page 76 or so, I think. And so those are part of the PDF documents. I found the one for the Masonic Lodge, and I know there is another one for the other development. That is So oftentimes when easements were granted, it was, and I was looking through them to see if I could find, there isn't necessarily a maintenance agreement to that. That is certainly something that we can encourage. We can require so easements, if they don't have a maintenance agreement recorded as part of the property, are subject to a civil code, which does generally proportion the maintenance costs among the various parties based on distance and some other factors. I'm not going to get into the civil components of that because I'm not a lawyer, but that's generally how they're handled. We can, as the commission, you could require, we can't put a condition of approval on a project that requires something from another property owner. However, it is certainly something that we would encourage the Habitat folks to coordinate with the other HOAs in terms of, and Bob, you said there's 2 other developments. And do they both share in the maintenance at this point?
Yeah, we share the maintenance and the lighting. And we pay, there's a property tax that we have to pay on this annually as well. And none of it's cheap. I mean, it's my issue is that, you know, somebody wants to use property that's deeded to our HOA and the HOA in the back and take advantage of our lighting, take advantage of our upkeep, because it's pretty pristine here as it is now, and have no stake in the preservation of it, you know? And
right,
I
and
know,
so that so Bob, that, you know, it's better for everybody if there's an agreement, because obviously that carries through in time, and it sounds like that's what the 2 existing developments have. It is something that I'd encourage, that you have the Habitat enjoin into that in some regard. Like I said, there is a civil code that regulates that based on the amount of, you know, easement. So the person at the end of the road usually has to pay more for the person at the beginning of the road and whatnot. An easement is a form of ownership. And so for whatever rights that easement is for, so if there's a public access or a right to access over it, then that is part of the property rights of the subject property. So that's kind of how what an easement is and how that works. And so there is an easement for this parcel on that access way as part of their documentation.
so expenses can be shared or they can't be unless
So
it's set
I
up
can
with
talk
us.
to you some of the more specifics afterwards, but
Yeah,
what I'm
definitely.
trying to say is in terms of the cost, there is civil law that generally regulates that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, you can't just use someone else's easement and as an easement owner and not do anything. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Jeff, do you have thoughts about the garbage question, garbage can storage, or how that's going to work?
Yeah, we did speak about that, and would anticipate that each homeowner's trash bins would be kept in their garage units and then put out on trash day.
And I guess I'm wondering if does the garbage get picked up on Main Street, or do the garbage trucks come up to your property, Bob, and you have pickup up there? In which case they would probably just put them in front of their garage, on their driveways, or where does your?
Well, right now we have dumpsters,
Okay.
so we don't have that pickup like you're talking about. But you know, then there's a problem of where are they going to put the garbage cans? When are they going to have them in? You know what I mean? Because each house is going to have 3.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean
that's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they have storage locations worked out. They'll have to work out the pickup locations with Recology. I don't know exactly what that would be,
But that's gonna put them out on to the street, if that makes sense.
potentially, yes.
And those garbage trucks, that's more wear and tear on the street.
And I would note there's a lot of property on Healdsburg Avenue, 116, that do put their garbages out on the street. So that isn't an uncommon thing either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in all the way down Main Street. Most of the garbage is out. A lot of the garbage is out on Main Street. And then
I have a question.
hold on, Linda. I just want to try to address Bob's questions.
Okay.
There was a question about affordable housing. Steve, maybe do you want to, or Wayne, do you want to discuss habitats, how this is considered affordable housing? How do you guys, how this works?
So it works when we have a family, we sell them the house and they pay what they can afford based on the AMI and their income and so forth. And so if our costs are higher than that, we have to make up the difference. And in the 30-year time frame, if they want to sell the house, basically the price gets readjusted. But I believe that there's some limit on the amount of gain they can get selling the house. And Wayne, I don't know if you know the formula or the rules, but and then a new Habitat family would basically come in under the same situation. So it's not something where an affordable person can buy it, live there for 3 years, sell it at a market rate or anything like that. They basically sell it, I guess, at an affordable rate, and it goes to a new affordable housing family. It would be higher than what the original one paid for it, but it would not be a market rate. It would still be an affordable rate. It would be basically as though it was a new Habitat house that hadn't been lived in, starting over.
How would you choose that family to purchase that house? Is it like a first come, first serve? Or is it the person with the highest income?
Neither. It would go through the same evaluation process that we go through whenever we have a Habitat family. So there's a lot of considerations.
Okay.
And yeah.
And then the living in the garage, you had a question about that. We discussed that a little bit. There's legally nothing to stop someone from converting these, but it's practically, I think there's probably some issues with that happening. Okay, I think Linda.
There was a question on drainage.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was a question about drainage. Jeff, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure, I'll take that. So as with any project, we're required to capture and treat all of the drainage on our site. You asked specifically about the flat roofs. They're not actually flat, but that's just how we describe them. So they will slope to downspouts. It will come down, and then that water is captured and treated on site as part of our stormwater treatment.
And I'm sorry that I didn't ask this before, but my house is going to directly backs up to the furthest south unit. So I'm the one with the retaining wall that's holding my house up. So you say that you're going to leave the existing retaining wall because it doesn't go all the way to the property line. So you're going to extend it all the way to the property line and then down that existing driveway?
Let me see if I can find
I just don't want my house to fall down.
Absolutely not. Nor do we.
No one wants your house to fall down, Bob.
Yeah. So the existing retaining wall is right here. And so we are putting a new retaining wall in here. This retaining wall has a footing on it that we need to stay away from, essentially impacting anything that's the sphere of influence for that footing. So we have a new wall coming in here. And then this area in between will maintain essentially the existing grades that are there now. So there's nothing to undermine your existing retaining wall. So we have a new retaining wall that basically runs from where my cursor is now, south to the corner, and then out towards Main Street where we match up with existing grade.
And is there at the back, is there going to be a fence that's running the full length of the property or no? Just the retaining wall will be the back fence?
In essence, that will be the back fence, yes.
Okay.
And I'm sorry about this, isn't really a dialogue, so I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
cut you
no,
off a
I'm
little bit.
sorry. I know I was overstepping my bounds.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
and
sorry,
I
Linda,
think
you had a,
one thing
Right.
I would note, Bob, is that there will be a design review board hearing that will talk about more of these details at a later date. And we can find a way to get your information and make sure you know about that. You'll get a notice about that as well, I believe.
yeah. Linda, you had a comment or question.
Yes. So are these going to be like often Habitat homes are where the prospective owner also contributes hours to building or in kind or something?
Correct. They're required to either contribute to the actual construction, or we have the restore, so they could be working in the restore. But Habitat International, I think they're pegging it now at 250 hours per family of
Okay.
let's call it sweat equity.
Sweat equity. Okay. And then the second question is, here we were talking about potential ADUs in the garages. Now, do the owners of the 4 units own the separate garages that includes the roof with the wonderful planter boxes? So how does that work?
So the roof deck is covered under CC&Rs to be a sort of common area that is shared between the 4 units.
Okay. I'm just wondering if it is another glitch other than infrastructure already built in and things like that. In terms of accessibility, if you can't create accessibility like having a bedroom downstairs or being able to get into it easily from maybe the back patio, that at grade would make it easier, would you consider putting in some of the blocking in the bathroom, some of our universal, accessible, adaptable design guidelines that we recommend, and take a look at what you can do to help make it a little, I know downstairs, I don't know if that's a kind of bathroom that you can turn around with a wheelchair, but upstairs, it's big enough to have those kinds of features.
Absolutely. Blocking the wall and
Okay.
accommodation for grab bars and those sorts of things can certainly be accommodated as part of this.
Yeah, even just blocking in the shower so that you can have later on. It's so cost prohibitive to try to retrofit, as you know.
Yes.
So there are lots of little things. It's universal design isn't just for mobility. It also has to do with hearing, and it has to do with sight, and also where you put plugs, and but I know that I'm trying to remember our local developer who, the law requires that if you're selling a house, that the new owner, prospective owner, if the house hasn't been built yet, or the unit, and since these are townhouses, that you have to offer them an opportunity to have it be built as universally designed as possible. So that's the state law, and I'm just not sure how many people actually know that. So so you'll assess the needs, but I'm sorry to harp on this, but we should be able to live in our dwelling units without it being so prohibitive. And so I'm just asking or pleading with you to go a little extra step and see what kind of accessibility or adaptability that you can add, and I appreciate that. I'm an ICU nurse, a trauma nurse. It's not just old people that need accessibility. So.
Understood.
Okay, I appreciate that. I can't have everything I want, but I'm sure I'm going to try and do a good reminder.
Anything else, Linda?
I think we're good. I just wasn't sure if it's shared roof space, if that would, do something different around it being what we think of an ADU, I mean, not in most neighborhoods, it wouldn't be a shared roof. So just trying to plan ahead and think these things through. So I'm mixed on being able to do it, but we need to think of these things ahead of time. And if the infrastructure can be put in, we missed an opportunity where the charter school was downtown. Somehow the wishes of the city council to have that building be eventually adaptable to housing. The infrastructure wasn't put in. Oops. And so that was a very big missed opportunity. So sorry, I'm a granddaughter of a minister and the sister of a minister. So I think I have a little bit in me. So thank you though. And I so appreciate this project. Okay, and good luck.
Thanks. Everett?
Yeah, question for staff. So the garage units are satisfying parking requirements as part of that. And then once individuals move in, so let's say the first garage, because it has a door continuing into the main living area, someone turns that into a bedroom, and then the other 3 garages are storage. There's no cars being parked there. Is that taken into consideration, or how is that? Is that just something that we have no control over, or just want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's always taken in consideration, and unfortunately, I don't think we have any means to prohibit anything like that. I know that, especially for, it seems like the state of California, nobody uses their garage for a car anymore. But unfortunately, the garage requirement does meet the parking requirement or standard. But yeah, it's always considered that, potentially at some point in time, it could be turned into storage or a room or whatever the case may be. But I don't think we have any means of prohibiting that within our current zoning code.
Okay.
Well,
I
think,
just want to clarify that.
I don't think you could turn it, if you turned it into a room, just as another bedroom for the house, you'd have to get a building permit. Correct. And we wouldn't give them a building permit because they would lose their garage.
Correct.
You could,
that we wouldn't be able to regulate.
You could, right? Yeah. So we can regulate that. We can't regulate, but if, again, like Carrie said earlier, you can turn it into an ADU and lose your parking space. State law allows that to happen. But again, they would have to apply for a building permit. We would see it. We would understand what was going on.
Right. And then in that instance, I think there is usually when there's a development like this, because that whole garage structure, as Jeff was saying, the roof is common area. Well, the reality is the entire structure ends up being common area because it's one structure. It's, the building, the townhomes themselves, as conditioned by our building official, will be constructed basically as separate, but separate units, but are attached. And so those are, obviously they're subject to regulations in terms of modifications that are usually part of CC&Rs. You're kind of free to do what you want to inside of it. But the outs, and Jeff, I don't know if you have a sense, once these are constructed, are the townhome, is it going to be joint maintenance for the roofing and stuff like that? Because they're all attached? Yeah, okay, so usually the exteriors are, yeah, okay, so usually the exteriors of buildings that are like this, like the Barlow townhomes, the maintenance of all the exterior, it's like a condo. They are part of the HOA, and the maintenance cost from that and sort of the ownership of that is with a common ownership. The same thing will happen with the garage buildings. And so Jeff, just looking at your tentative map, and I'm sorry I didn't catch this earlier, but the lot structure, I think it will change. You'll have 4 lots, and then you'll have 4 sort of, G spaces or something that designate the garage to be attached. So you really only you'll have 4 lots plus a common area lot is what you'll end up with in the final map. And I know that's something that the city engineer will require as well as part of their final map process. And so because it's common ownership, I don't know, Jeff, what your thought is about the CC&Rs, but it would be very difficult to get infrastructure in and the maintenance requirements if one of the units was an ADU and the others were storage. There's also, sort of the building, from the building perspective, I think our building official would have concerns about the separation of the space, because if someone's storing chemicals because they do, I don't know what, glazing, pottery, whatever, next door that might be dangerous, you don't necessarily want that next to a living unit. So there's a lot of complexities with the ADUs. I know it's a possibility, but I do kind of agree with Jeff. It's probably not very likely in this situation.
Yeah. And I would just always, looking at, okay, how many spaces were in front of on the street parking? Was it 3 or 4?
4.
4. Okay. So, technically they would probably park in front of the street there, except public parking anyway. The second question is regarding when I was asking the question about water, rainwater capture, that kind of thing. Is that something that we could put a condition or review, or is that something more design review, or at least for them to at least consider it? I don't know if I'd like them to check it out to see if it's feasible. I wouldn't want to put it as a condition and find out it's really something really expensive. How could we handle something like that?
I think we would consider it as a recommendation from the Planning Commission that the Design Review Board take the rainwater harvesting consideration for the project, and if there's a way that the applicant can provide that into the project, then I think that would be the best solution, unless Carrie has a alternative route.
No, John, I think that's an excellent idea. That is what the commission did with the Starbucks very recently for the EV stations. And I think one of the bicycle parking. And so that was worked out at the design review level and required by the design review board. So I think that process of communicating with them is solid.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any thoughts or deliberations or motions from the commission? Any edits or questions about any of the conditions?
So I would, if there is a recommendation for the DRB to consider that, you can actually add that as a condition. So a recommendation that the applicant consider the rainwater and design review board review that, or you can make it as an informal recommendation, and staff, John will carry that through.
Any thoughts about that?
Just before we make that recommendation, perhaps we could hear from Jeff regarding the feasibility. I think from my own experience, a site so constricted, rainwater harvesting is an extremely problematic proposition for this site. So I'd hate to forward a recommendation and have the applicant spend a lot of time on something if it's simply non-viable.
We haven't explored it in depth. I would tend to agree that it is going to be a challenge on this site. Certainly looking at opportunities to capture, roof drainage. I love the optimism that we're going to have enough to capture. But it also is problematic in designing irrigation systems that rely on a source that can't really be relied on. So I'm happy to look into it. Difficult for me today to commit that we could actually come up with a workable solution.
Yeah, I mean, for example, can you catch rainwater for the roof garden? You know, something as simple as that to consider, you know, even if it goes into barrels and you use that for watering. I mean, that's an improvement.
Right. There are certainly fairly simple systems that can supplement as opposed to being relied on for a water source. So we can take a look at that.
Just anything you can kind of think that might be feasible and work with. That's all I'm asking for.
Steve, go ahead.
And I'll just make a quick comment on that. I capture rainwater on both sides of my house. It's great. I use it here. It's very limited because unless you have huge storage, I mean, it takes an inch of rain to fill 500-gallon tanks, and so I think it would be difficult to make it financially feasible to do it in a situation like this, even though I'm a big proponent of it.
All right, I had a question about let's see, what is this? And the resolution, let's see, it's page 6 of the staff report. And this is referring to some of the general plan policies. Item 6, I think there's something left off of that, and I'm not sure what it is. The city will encourage development of new housing to meet a range of income levels, including market rate housing and a variety of housing sizes and types, by developing 4 townhome units within proximity to something. The sentence just sort of ends.
Yeah, I believe that was supposed to, and John, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but proximity to schools, schools, office, and retail resources. You know, there hasn't been too much new housing in downtown, and this is an opportunity, basically.
So maybe similar to 4. I mean, it's a different policy, but sort of a similar response.
Correct. Or you could just delete that if it's already, since it's already kind of.
Well, it's a different policy. It's sort of addressing a different policy, so, but maybe it's the same language of how it's addressing a sort of similar.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we need something there. We can't just leave it hanging.
Yeah, and if we do know that this is going to be moderate income level, then we can also just note that instead, because the city, as a city, we don't have very much moderate income homeowner opportunities. We have a lot of moderate income, but that's because they're small ADUs that, the rent is not. So in that regard, in terms of what the city is providing, that is certainly arranged to have a moderate, to have 4 moderate income level townhome ownership opportunities.
It sounds like they could be low income though too, right? It's not necessarily just a moderate. It could be, it could be a low or a very low person too. It sounded like. I don't know if we want to.
Yeah, I think that's a question for Jeff and the Habitat folks. But
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought I heard that in their presentation that there was.
I think it's highly unlikely it would be very low. Low, I believe, goes up to 80% AMI. I think it's possible we could hit that maybe with 1 or 2. I don't know. I mean, that's.
Yeah. And we could say moderate or low income ownership opportunities. And I think that would, that's really what that policy is talking about is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, if we can, clarify that language. And I think that an item 8, policy D5, I think it's just a grammar thing. I think it should say by providing affordable housing to a variety of families through the Habitat. Just a kind of grammatical fix there. And then on page 7, the top of page 7, item B, I'm not sure what the second sentence is saying. Something seems to be kind of weird there.
So the finding for the conditional use permit of residential only is that it's not going to be detrimental to the, if you had businesses all around and you were creating a big void in sort of a retail window shopping area. So that's the detrimental to the nearby businesses. And so this is, I want to make sure I'm doing the right one. This is B.
Yeah, I guess the second sentence I just reads kind of strange to me as well.
The lots behind this project are residential multifamily. Oh, I see. It's just the grammar that's odd. So it's basically stating that, the existing uses around this are not commercial, therefore it's not really going to have an impact on existing commercial businesses. So this is just outlining, but yeah, the lots surrounding this project are residential multifamily and a Masonic lodge to the north. And as such, would be compatible. The project would be compatible with nearby uses. That's probably a better way of stating it.
Okay. And then C, I think should read, the site would be difficult to develop as a commercial use due to the lot configuration and size and parking requirements. I mean, do we have, we don't have anything that has no parking requirements. I don't think there's a potential for required parking. Always
Right.
require parking. Again, I think it reads better. So any further kind of discussion of the approval, or you want to make a motion, or
I'd be happy to make a motion.
concerns?
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, if, I don't know if it's amenable to the commission to just add in the recommendation. It's not a requirement, but just recommendation design review board look at and the project individuals or the applicant look at, just so it's not lost or forgotten, anything they can do for that rainwater capture or whatever issues.
I'm okay with that as a soft recommendation, but I don't want to put that in as a condition.
No, I don't either, but just as
A gentle nudge, I'm okay with.
Well, I would move to approve or move to adopt the resolution recommending City Council accept the resolution as submitted here.
And I'll second.
And just to clarify, you mean with Paul's edits that as revised?
Yes,
by Paul,
exactly.
By Chair Fritz?
Yes,
Thank you.
Debbie, did I hear you trying to say something?
No, I was just wondering if you were that you were going to make, there was a rainwater catching, and he also had the issues of solar, making it ready for solar and handicapped. If you wanted to put the soft recommendations in for that as well.
Yeah, the handicap, sure, we can put a kind of a soft recommendation, gentle recommendation in for, as many kind of features that would make them adaptable in the future as possible. And the solar is a kind of building code requirement for this to be solar ready. So they have to follow the building code for that. So they'll do what they need to do.
And also for the electric car setup, or.
Yeah, and I think that may be,
I think that's part of the building code now.
I think
too.
that's part of the building
Okay.
code now, tell you
Alright.
have infrastructure for the electric
Okay.
car. And actually maybe, depending on when you get this submitted, Title 24 changes January 1st. So that I think is going to be a requirement if it's not submitted this year. Okay, any further discussion or deliberation from the commission about the motion and standing? All right, then let's take a vote.
Okay, we'll start off with Commissioner Dauch,
Aye.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ottinger,
Aye.
and Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes unanimously. And so this is, just to remind everyone, this is not a final approval. It is a recommendation to city council because it involves a subdivision. And so we will prepare this for city council. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing that lot developed.
Yeah.
I think we all are, including the fire
Long
chief.
time coming.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night. Okay, our next agenda item is election of a chair and a vice chair. So I think the way this works is we take a nomination for a new chair, and then we vote on that, and then the new chair takes recommendations or nominations for a vice chair. So
Correct. That is, and actually, Chair Fritz, I will say I kind of like it at the end of the meeting because then it gives me a chance to train up the new chair if it's someone different. I think last time it was, it's like the first time you're chairing, you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was running the meeting at the beginning of a meeting.
Yeah. All right. So do we have anyone to nominate, like make a nomination for a new chair?
I'd like to nominate Kathy Ottinger.
And do we need a second on a nomination? Kathy, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to say that, Paul, you'll be a really hard act to follow. And
Thank you.
I don't know if you all would want to put up with me as chair because I'm going to need a lot of help. And I'm also pretty busy, but I'm willing to do it if you have confidence in me. If there's someone else who wants to do it for the love or glory, I don't need to do this.
We all had to start
I'm
at
thinking
some
of the
point.
glory.
Didn't know what we were doing either. So
I don't know if it's love or glory. There's not. I can say there's not much glory.
Yeah, and maybe not a lot of love at this hour of night.
Yeah.
My age. So, but I'm willing to do it with your help and forgiveness and understanding. I'll do my part.
All right. So it sounds like she's accepting that. And then do we have a second? Did someone say? Do we need
I'll
a second
second
for
that.
nomination?
I'll second that,
All right.
and we'll all help you along the way.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll take a vote on that unless there's any other discussion.
Okay, I will proceed with a vote. Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Commissioner Dauch.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ottinger,
Okay.
Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. So congratulations, Kathy, and thank you, Chair Fritz, for all your service this past year and a half, maybe actually is what it ended up being, I think, but thank you.
Sure.
And Kathy, if you not accepted, I was going to nominate Zach. So good for you.
All right.
All right. So Kathy, now you're running the meeting.
Oh, I am. I hadn't got the agenda all the way down.
It happens pretty fast.
Okay, I think we would entertain a nomination for vice chair. Are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Everett.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Are there other nominations? Not seeing any, let's call for a vote.
Okay, I'll proceed with the vote. Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Dauch,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes. Or
I
okay.
should have done you. I should have done you first in case you said no. Commissioner Fritz
Aye.
and Chair Ottinger.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations. That motion is unanimous.
Okay, moving on to item 9, the planning director's report. Oh, I'm sorry, 8, subcommittee updates. Are there any subcommittee updates? Seeing none, we'll move on to the planning director's report.
All right, thank you, Chair Ottinger. And I do want to start off by noting that next Tuesday, there will be, at the city council meeting, there will be a few items, the budget and a bunch of other stuff, but most importantly, at the beginning of the meeting, Commissioner Dauch will be presented a certificate of appreciation by the council. They do that before any public comment or anything, so if you're able to join, that would be great. I had the pleasure of actually snooping around and seeing just how long Commissioner Dauch has been either a commissioner or a design review board member, and I thank you for your service, sir.
How long has it been?
You're going to have to ask Kerry because I've lost track.
I believe it was 2009 when he
Yeah,
joined the
2008,
DRB.
2009, that sounds
2008, 2009 to 2014, he was on the DRB, and then he's been on the Planning Commission ever since. So.
But I would note that there is several people here who have been on at least the Planning Commission for longer than I have. So I would pass forward that appreciation for all of you guys' service, and especially those of you that have been doing it a long time, and those who will be doing it a long time. So it is. I think we do benefit from the institutional memory. Of course, we benefit from new members as well. So it's great to have some newer folks and some veterans, but whichever you are, I want to pass on my appreciation to each of you as well.
Thank you.
Right. And yes, this is Commissioner Dauch's last meeting. The Planning Commission ordinance, which reduces the number to 5 and adjusts the geography, takes effect tomorrow. So thank you, Commissioner Dauch, for your input and participation at all the meetings, but tonight as well. we hung on to you till the very last minute. Other items on, actually one other thing to report, and I know Zach was the Planning Commission's rep to our local hazard mitigation plan hazard committee. The City Council adopted the local hazard mitigation plan at their meeting last week. And I don't know if I reported previously that FEMA and Cal OES had the tentative approvals. So the process is we have basically submitted our resolution showing that the city has adopted the mitigation plan. And then FEMA should be approving and we'll have sort of a certified plan within 45 days. So was a huge effort, and council is very appreciative of everyone who assisted with that. So thank you, Zach, for your service on that committee as well. This sort of, I'll follow on with a couple other sort of subcommittee related. At the last council meeting, the council also approved 5 additional sculptures for the Ives Park Sculpture Garden, which were reviewed and recommended by the Public Art Committee. Those will be installed in the next, probably early July, where we have our July 6th meeting. It is, I believe, on the site to select which piece goes where, and then the installation will follow shortly after that. Please save the date. There is an opening celebration planned for July 23rd. That's a Saturday. It's I believe it's 1 to 3:30. There will be the Santa Rosa Chamber Ensemble will be there playing. The artists will be there. I think there's one artist who can't make it, but of the 8 or 9, but the artists will be there. The mayor will be giving some notes and a ribbon cutting. And with COVID, we aren't doing refreshments, but they'll be obviously enjoying the park, hopefully on a beautiful day. And I do know that the art center is also kind of joining in, and they will be having an art sale for art supplies if you're inspired by the sculpture at the sort of rear part of their parking lot. So that is July 23rd at Ives Park at the Sculpture Garden. And then another sort of dedication ceremony is July 20th at 6 p.m. is the library sculpture dedication ceremony. The library is doing a fabulous job of doing a lot of the coordination for us, which I really appreciate. That will be held, the ceremony, so to speak, will be held in the plaza, outdoor in the plaza, between and fountain area between City Hall and the library, so that everyone can kind of see the sculpture. And that will also include a brief talk by the artist. Other items of interest to this committee, the June 21st, so there is the city council meeting. There's the certificate of appreciation for Commissioner Dauch. A couple items for the planning department. They are in consent calendar. One is the approval of the objective design standard contract, and that is Opticos Design. And that would be starting to work with the design guidelines subcommittee, which Commissioner Fritz is a member of. I believe they would be able to start work in early August. So that's the second part after the standard conditions that we did as staff, but this will be a more intense effort with the consultant for objective design standards. They will also be doing SB 9 regulations assistance for us. And that is something that will end up being an ordinance. You know, the planning commission will see both of these, but an ordinance related to that state legislation, which is about lot splits and smaller subdivisions within single family zoning. And then the main topics for the June 21st, as well as the July 5th meeting, is the city budget and the capital improvement plan. I believe I mentioned that the parks budget was for the capital improvement plan for this next year was accepted by the budget subcommittee and recommended forward to the full council. And so that will be on those two meetings. And we do have, I will note, we do have a pretty packed schedule for the planning commission. So I do anticipate having meetings and Kathy and maybe Paul as past chair, you could join as well because you're familiar with the forward agenda and we've talked about it. I would like if you can both hang out on afterwards so I can ask a couple of questions about agenda management. But we do anticipate having a full docket through August. At this point, we have items that will be scheduled. So if you, and since we are going to 5 members, if you're going to be out of town, if you could let me know, that way we can just make sure that we do have a quorum for any meetings that require such. We have a couple that won't require a quorum, but we can sort of massage the schedule based on that as well. And I think that's it, unless you have any questions for staff.
All right.
I'm not seeing any questions. So I guess we can move to adjournment.
Sounds good. Thanks, Zach. See ya.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Good luck and keep up the good work. We'll see you around town.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
Have a good evening.
See you
everyone.
around.
Yeah.
And Zach, can you